Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 7 of the Max Frequency Podcast. Joining me this time, Irrational Passion's own Alex O'Neill. Hi, Alex.
Hi.
People who have been paying attention to the feed may think, didn't this Alex O'Neill guy just do a show in this podcast feed? And he did not just do this show. He recorded that show 4 years ago.
I was going to say, like, how long ago was it?
I think it was 2017, if I remember correctly.
It sounds right.
And so that's Behind the Pixel. I interviewed him. It was all official. I was like, Alex, you have this website.
It was all official, all above board.
It was all above board. I was being a real professional about everything. This is not that. This is just me talking to my friend because I haven't spoken to you long term, like long form, as it were, as the kids say, since PAX East, and maybe that was 10 minutes.
Which PAX East? The 2021, the last video game event that ever happened?
No, I think it was 2019.
Okay,
2019 is the only PAX I've been to. I miss PAX.
No, it must have had to have been that one. And I'm trying to remember what happened there. I don't think I did anything that whole time.
I feel like I remember. So this is what I remember is because I went with Logan Moore, Michael Rees, and Chris Compendio and Ryan. I'm blanking on his last name. Went with the DualShockers people. I was a part of that team then, and I remember. Yes, thank you. We went and we got into town, the night before. And I remember Logan was like, yeah, and there should be like this Alex O'Neill PAX dinner. And that was the year you didn't have an Alex O'Neill PAX dinner. And I was like, oh, man. He knew I was coming.
Yeah. I think it was just because, if I'm thinking, I think that was the year that, we had Jess there. And yeah. It was just we had a lot of people at that point, and it was like I gotta corral these people. I can't even risk inviting more people, and I think that was also after like something terrible had happened in 2018 or whatever. It's usually how it goes, right? Like I did it until someone had to go and ruin it.
It's always someone else's fault.
No, I mean I'd love to do that again, obviously, but. I would love to do it, period. But I also would love to go back to PAX. I was talking about this with Mike. We both said, but I don't think I'd go to PAX if I couldn't get a press pass. It's very funny, yeah. I've only ever had it.
Changes everything.
Yeah, so I'm ruined by it. But I don't know. There's a lot of fun to have at PAX if you just want to walk around and talk to people, I think.
It is definitely very social. And I think if you focus on the indies, not having a press pass would be like doable. Yeah. But if you're going there and you're trying to play, the big games and Nintendo and Sony and whoever else is there. I remember the year I went, there was Days Gone. Oh my gosh. What is that? From Alan Wake people. What's this? Control. Control was there.
Yeah. I remember I played Control during the press hour. That was like the first thing
I think we were in line together.
Yeah, I think that might have been it.
First time I saw you in person. You're playing Control.
Nice and disappointing in the meat space.
The game was disappointing. You were not.
It was a rough demo.
I did not enjoy that demo.
Yeah.
It didn't make me feel.
A lot of people didn't, but I liked it just because I was like, ooh, I can play Control. Yeah.
I do want to give. I think a big part of it was because that game was not running very well on whatever hardware they were using. And I think now with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, ray traced, blah, 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 I think a game might run actually a little bit better than it did. But
probably.
I miss PAX. I
Yeah.
remember they were going to have The Last of Us there in 2020, and then they didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
We all made fun of Sony for pulling out. And then the world ended.
Sony was like, guess what, guys? We know what's happening.
Yeah, we have a pretty good idea that this is actually not a good idea.
Did you go in 2020?
Yeah. I had a panel
because I know you're much closer to the like Boston PAX area.
East Coast, yeah. Well, yeah, you're in Florida, right? And I'm halfway up.
I mean, I'm still on the East Coast, but I'm in the Southeast.
Yeah. Florida is like its own kind of independent Anywhere south of Jacksonville is its own independent East Coast based country as far as I'm
pretty
concerned.
much.
That's where my mom lives, so that's where this opinion comes from. So
your mom's in Jacksonville?
She's in Orlando area. So.
Oh, okay. She's in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, she's probably pretty close. I don't know. She moved recently to be closer to the water, so she might. I have not.
She's an hour or two away, depending on which coast. But I'm not trying to track down your mother. That would be
Linda!
Weird, especially to do it on the air. Then everyone could find your mother.
Yeah, that's fine. Please don't go to my mom's house. She's a very nice lady.
I believe it, because you're a very nice person.
Oh, you are too, Max. Well, thank you.
The first, I know we have show docs, and I just kind of wrote down what came first. But the first thing I really wanted to talk to you about, just because I was so proud and so excited for you, you were on a podcast with Greg Miller. You were on Kind of Funny Games Daily. You did the thing. I did the thing. 4 years ago, we talked about how you wanted to do the thing. Now you've done the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, how did that happen? How did that come about? Who hooked you up?
I mean, I could get it's very funny too, because I was going to be there in person. I don't know how many people actually know about this. Actually, now that I think of it, because I'm bad at talking to people, so I don't. I try and play a little close to my chest. But yeah, I was going in 2020. I was gonna go to San Francisco on the DL for a week, just so I could hang out with my very good friends Barrett and Alyssa. I was going to be on Kind of Funny Games Daily on April 8th, 2020, or April 3rd, one of the two, in person. And then the world ended, and I emailed Gray, and that was a thing of where I hey, you said to ask, and I'm asking, hey, do you need somebody for this? And then he was like, all right, yeah, let me find a day for you, and then he got back to me, and that's how it went usually. Which is a privilege, obviously. I'm very aware of that. And it's a wonderful gift that I try not to take for granted. That's why I never talk about it or think about it or guilt myself out of it all the time. And then obviously that got canceled, and I was just all the Black Lives Matter stuff happened. I was like, this is not my time. There is stuff that's way more important to me personally right now. And so I just didn't pursue that for a long time. And I was just excitedly watching a lot of other not white people on that show. And
yeah, they did really great.
Yeah. And I think especially with Blessing there at that time, it was really great.
Yes.
And then a whole year passed, and I was hanging out with Barrett, who works for Kind of Funny. Not that we talk about that a lot, but he's just a very good friend.
He's just your friend. That's the way I am with Roger. Roger's a guy I give a hard time about using Adobe Premiere, and we both mourn the loss of Sam Fisher and Splinter Cell.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Honestly, when he got hired at Kind of Funny, I was like, of course, I'm surprised it took him this long to pick you up. Let's get back to hoping for Splinter Cell.
Yeah. And that's the thing with Roger, too. He's like a little brother to me. He's just a very good friend. So I was just hanging out with Barrett, and this is the true story. So anything that you hear on the internet, otherwise, this is what really happened. And I joked to him, half joking, half serious, as I am with all things, that I never text Greg because I'm just... this power of having someone's phone number, I never utilize it because I'm sure they'll just hate me if I do. And to be fair, I feel that way about Greg Miller. Obviously not true. I've texted him wing recipes at 2:00 in the morning, and he's been fine about it. But that's how I feel about everyone. Just if you're out there Alex hasn't texted me in 6 months. It's just because I think that if I do, you will hate me if you don't already. And then 2 days later, Greg texted me saying, hey, Barrett said that you don't text me because you're worried that you annoy me.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm like, this is my worst nightmare.
This is the nightmare. Wait.
And then he said, you could never do that. I love you, bud. And I was like, all right, well, that's fine. And then the next day, he was like, do you want to be on Kind of Funny Games Daily? I'm like, I'm going to assume that Barrett had something to do with this as well. And then it all kind of rolled out from there.
That's awesome. I kind of know... for a long time, and I think I still do to this day, we're going to take a deep dang, what do they call it? It's
diversion.
A tangent. Yeah, diversion. We're gonna go a little deep. So there was I still struggle with this a lot today, but whenever I interact with someone that I look up to, especially in like an industry that I admire, whether that's podcasting or video games or tech or whatever, if I interact with them, I get very excited and I get very in my head about, well, how often should I talk to this person or respond or send them a message, like, or follow up, or, you know, they haven't talked to me in a week. Like, what do I do? Should I, like, I feel like if I nudge them too much, they're just going to stop talking to me. And I feel like I screw up a lot of things that way. And that's happened. I've done that with Greg before. So this is a story. You know, Greg's a big reason why I do anything that I do in this space. For, you know, I think a lot of people, he's been that. So I'm not original in that way at all. But I went out, I had an opportunity to go out to California to visit my dad, because he was actually working on a construction project. He actually helped finish the Apple campus, like their spaceship out there.
Oh, okay.
And so while that project was wrapping up, I was able to go out there and like spend a few days with him. And for the weekend, I think he took like the Friday off or whatever. And so Friday through Sunday or whatever, we went into San Francisco, which is about an hour away from Cupertino, hour and a half or whatever. And so that Friday, I went into the city before he did while he worked or whatever. And because Greg's not secret about anything, it wasn't very hard to pinpoint the location of Kind of Funny offices. Mm-hmm. So I like in a creepy, respectful way, like I found their building, and I didn't like try to go upstairs and knock on the door and say, let me in. I was waiting to just see if Greg, like I'd catch Greg coming in the office. I did not. I caught Nick. And I gave Nick a letter, and I just said, hey, I'm here. It's just for my birthday. I'm not trying to bother you or anything. I know you're busy. You got a show to go do. But I have this letter. If you could just give this to Greg, I'd really appreciate it. And then I walked to a mall and I bought Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze and went to the IGN offices. So anyway, I wrote this letter to Greg. It's kind of just one of those heartfelt, you know, hey, I do this, you know, you're why I do this, and this is why I stopped doing this. And like in a weird way, I felt like I let you down. And then also Colin leaving Kind of Funny and like the end of their friendship on kind of the terms that kind of happened on, kind of always just kind of ripped my little heart out too. And so I wrote about that. Anyway, he emailed me, you know, his short, sweet way. But then, when was this? A couple years ago. Abby and I were married. So it's sometime between 2017 and 2018. So in there somewhere. After I did the letter, whatever, he came to Florida with Tim. Then went to Full Sail University, which is maybe 40 minutes from where I am. And so I went to the meet and greet. And Greg has this uncanny ability to remember everyone. I don't know how he does it, but he knows. Yeah. It's insane. He will remember everyone and everything. And so I went up to him, and it's the only time I've ever seen Abby get aggressive. Yeah, not like determined, because I'm the kind of guy in a line or in a busy space to just like let other people. I avoid confrontation. I'm not a very confrontational person. And she was like, "You need to push forward. Like people are cutting. I get it. He's super popular, but we need to be a bit more assertive here." She was like, she went like kind of maternal mode of like, you know, my
sweet kid, baby birdie's going to get to the front of this line.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And so I told him, you know, I'm like, hey, I'm the guy that wrote the letter. I wrote
the serial killer letter, you know, with all the the different newspaper clippings clipped together. That was me.
Remember the guy that was like creepily standing outside your office window looking at you?
Yeah, it was me.
And I'm telling you, as soon as I told him I was there, I wrote a letter, I dropped it off with like just the gist, he knew right away. And he gave me the biggest hug as if he had known me for years. And I've known about him for years, you know. And it's so crazy. And then I haven't talked. I think I sent him an email just like, hey, I wrote this Naughty Dog history thing. I thought you'd care. And he was like, good job, basically. And that's kind of the last thing I've ever interacted with Greg on. And I don't know, so to tie it back, it just whenever I interact with people that I look up to, I get really in my head about. And if I had their phone number,
oh yeah,
oh my gosh, I'd be so scared
because I'll never use this.
I would feel it because they're people, but they're like in my head they're bigger people than I am. Not just stature. Greg's a very tall man, but you know, I don't want to come off as annoying.
It's always like it's funny because Greg is like one of those people that is not like that, right? So when you meet someone who's like, I have social anxiety, and you're like, I get it. Say no more. Like, finally, someone who understands. It's weird sometimes just generally interacting with people that are not anxious all the time. It's hard to connect with those people. It is a merit to the folks like Greg that they are good enough at what they do to like even break down those kinds of barriers. So.
Yeah, he has crazy
charisma.
Like, charisma, that's a great word. And now the man's going to be a dad, which is just going to be. I thought about this the other day. It's a boy, I believe. I believe it is his son or whatever. Yes. So his son can literally go back and watch videos of his father from whenever Beyond started, because that's really probably the time like Greg was ever on camera. Like, can see the evolution of his father over decades.
Oh yeah, but also like
that's weird.
I've thought about it in a way too of like, and it's a thing with, you know, parasocial relationships has been a very popular topic on the social medias. But it's a thing with that, and it's also a thing with just content creation, people becoming parents and getting older, and like, you know, because I've listened to like my brother and me for a very long time, and now all of them have 2 kids, which is crazy. There are 6 mini McElroys out there that could start, in theory, 2 separate My Cousin and Me podcasts simultaneously in 18 years. And it is weird to think like that, right? It's weird to like think of someone's offspring as like a content horse that needs to churn the mill more.
keep This is what'll happen. Blessing will take over Kind of Funny, and then Greg Jr. will like start a revolution to take it
yeah
back.
Exactly. Like it's weird, but it's weird to think within those bounds of like, now this other meat person is also a vehicle for my entertainment, right? It's like, no,
I try to like but when it comes to people's kids, I'm like, I really try to stay away and out of that. If the kid wants to do their own thing and I enjoy it, then sure. But like,
yeah, it's such a weird thing now, right? Because we're gonna see that, you know, we're gonna see this kid grow up to some extent, knowing Greg of how he shares things on social media. Potentially not.
I'm curious how like forthcoming they'll be about sharing like pictures of, you know, their kid and his life, and like, you know, is there going to be a Kind of Funny birthday live stream for this child? Like, that seems odd to me.
It seems like a thing, A, that Greg would maybe think about doing, but B, also a thing that Greg maybe shouldn't do. But it's just weird to think of it in that regard, but it's also weird to think of all those people that have like a familial relationship to Greg and Jen, myself included, and how them actually having a family is going to more than likely negatively affect that. And like, you know, I know all these content creators, like people like Greg are beautiful, wonderful butterflies, but like once you have a kid, you got to respond to what that's doing every day. You can't, you know, respond to every serial killer letter that you get at your office, you know?
Yeah. Basically, if you want Greg to remember you need to get it in here in the next 4 months.
But like, people probably are thinking about it like that, and there's like that competitiveness to it. It just, there's a lot of things to think about with content creators having kids that concerns me on a very like emotional level.
Yeah, so the previous episode I just did to kind of really tie it all into this is with a guy named Casey Liss. He's the host of a podcast that was a huge inspiration for me to get back into this after I killed off Millennial Gaming Speak and Model Citizens and stuff. ATP, it's an Accidental Tech podcast, and he does another show called Analog. Anyway, he graciously accepted my invitation to come on the show, and we talked and stuff. And he has 2 children. His kids are young, and I wanted to talk about some of his experiences just as an adult and the like technology in their lives. And that felt I wanted to approach that very respectfully. Obviously, if he didn't want to talk about his kids, I wouldn't have done it. And he talks about them semi-regularly, so I thought it'd be okay. But I just feel weird coming to these people and like, hey, you have kids. And it doesn't help that from now through October, Abby and I have friends, couples in our lives. There's at least one baby a month from now through October in our lives. It is crazy, dude.
These quarantine babies are popping the off.
It is wild. People are just like, we're having a baby, we're having a baby, we're having a baby. And I'm like, everyone needs to calm down. Like, can we space these out a little bit more, please?
Yeah, at least don't drop them all in the same year. So it's like, they're all going to go to elementary school together. And it's like, what? Stop it.
It is a lot. I'm excited for them. And I personally think, like, I've always gotten along well with, like, I feel like I'm a very sociable person, and I feel like I've been decent at talking to kids. I've never held a baby, though. Abby keeps saying she's so excited for me to hold a baby. I'm like, how do I hold it? Like, up with my, like, their feet? Like, how do you do this?
You just
they all have a soft spot? I don't know.
Yeah. Don't touch their head. Just rule of thumb, generally, for safety precautions.
Support the neck. This is all I really understand. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've never held a baby either. I ain't about to do that. That sounds terrifying. I mean, at some point in my life, maybe, but like, I'm not married, nor do I have prospects in my life of marriage in any shape or form. So I just don't think about it. I guess it feels like the responsible thing to do. Like, I just worry about something that's probably more important right now.
We're probably smart. We obviously are in the thick of it right now.
Yeah.
For a hot minute there, it was everyone was getting married, and that was doable. And now it's like everyone's having kids, and it's like, oh goodness.
Like, maybe not
yet. Slow down, everybody, please.
Pump the brakes.
That stuff's crazy. So, what was it like to actually do? I mean, I know you've hung out with Greg. Greg came to your house, for Pete's sake. You guys streamed video games for charity, right? That was the one of those extra life streams, right?
Mm-hmm. And that was like and there's so much weird just about all of that in general, but like, I think did we record our thing before that or after that?
I will find the date. I will find the date, and you tell me, because I honestly don't remember. I feel like it was before.
It had to have been before, because it was November that happened, and so it was pretty late in the year, you know. That was crazy too. Of like, you know, on top of that, I have like 20 of my closest friends in this house with me, so like legitimately almost every single human that has ever mattered to me was there, or at least in a really significant way. The people that I've like known the longest, or the internet friends that I've like spent the most time with. Yeah. So there's that moment when the knock is at the door, and I'm like walking down this hallway that I've walked down for every day for 2 years, and then I turn around, and then there's like 20 people that are like, "It's fine, it's good." They're thumbs up, smiling. You're like, "It'll be fine." And then I open the door, and there's Greg Miller. He's like, "What's up?"
This is crazy.
It is great, but it's fun, you know. Like he just takes it. The funniest part about that night was when Greg ordered 12 pizzas from Domino's, and they immediately called him and said like, "Hey, you can't just do that. We're really busy right now. You didn't tell us that you were going to order 12 pizzas and 30 sides or whatever." And he comes down, he's like, "I think your Domino's is really upset about me." And I'm like, "I'm so sorry. We should have probably told them." But
one year for Christmas, Abby's cousins come down every Christmas pretty much. And one Christmas, her cousin and my brother-in-law ordered 200 McNuggets from McDonald's. They were going to each try to do the 100 McNugget challenge, which apparently is a thing. So we had to call ahead of time, tell them, "Hey, can you even do this?" And they're like, "We can if you show up." Like, you have to come and wait for the food. I'm not just going to drop 200 nuggets and then hope you come. Like, you got to be here. And so we did that, and I think they both got about 30 nuggets in before they thought they were going to die.
Yeah. I've done the 50 nuggets. I only got about 22 in, and I was like, "Oof."
It's just,
we're gonna have to slow down here if you know what I mean.
Oh my goodness.
What was like the cool thing with it, to get on the rails here? Greg's been on my podcast, on Irrational Passions podcast, which was like more of like a kind of interview segment with everybody. And then he was, him and I did an Arkham Knight spoiler cast, which was very fun. That was just the two of us. And then he was on the podcast for Extra Life, which was very casual and like just us sitting at a table and hanging out and chatting. So like we had done stuff before, but like it is, as someone who's listened to Beyond, you yourself, like it's different when you're like invited into the house that made you, I mean, like it's different when I'm here and you're hosting. It's a very different kind of stress. Yes. In that it's much less stressful for me, at least. Like I could show up and just talk to anybody, whatever, I don't care. So that was there, and then once we kind of got going, I was nervous at the beginning. I flubbed a lot of the questions because I like didn't think anything at all before and in the moment of like, why are you still doing this? I'm like, I have no idea. I gave a better answer on the episode of Simply Sassy Vids that I was on afterwards, and I said on there of like, that was the answer that I would have given if I had thought about it at all.
If I had prepped for this.
If I had prepped for this and wasn't astronomically nervous. But yeah, like after the kind of opening and like just getting in the flow of things, it was just fun. I was just having a fun time. It was
seemed like a lot of fun.
It was like that kind of like actualization of the thing that you want to do, of like, oh yeah, this is just fun. Like when you got like someone that you're just good with and you're compatible, you can talk anything about with. You're just having a good time. Like, oh, what are we going to talk about next? And plus, what was super satisfying about it was we talked so much about the Xbox stuff, and Nabashin, my partner in podcast, one of my very best friends, him and I have done like one-on-one podcasts about Xbox like half a dozen times over in the last 2 years. So it felt like everything that we had been doing had been like building into this moment.
You were training.
Exactly. I know all these things that I would want to say. I have all these kind of like established opinions that I feel pretty good about, that I can throw out there. And I can tell Paris that I disagree with him, right? Like because I've thought about it a lot, So it was cool. I'm glad what we ended up talking about was what we ended up talking about, and it was just fun. I just had a lot of fun. I wasn't nervous by the end of it, and that's the fun thing.
That's the important part.
Yeah.
That's a important part.
Anybody that's met Greg knows that he has like this ability that once he kind of starts going, he just puts you at ease. And once you just kind of get on that and just let it ride, it's not too bad. It was fun. It was an incredible privilege. I'm honored to be there, to have been there. They talked about like, oh yeah, we got to have you. Blessing was like, immediately like, I got to get you on so I can talk with you. It's like, oh, it's very flattering. It's okay if it never happens. I can die happy now. It's fine.
I've reached the peak. Anything else after this is just icing on the cake. Well, my dream would be Beyond, or not Beyond. P.S. I Love You. So P.S. I Love You just because PlayStation's more my speed, and Greg and PlayStation are like synonymous in my mind. So that would just be like a goal. Let's call that a goal. Dream would be to reunite Greg, Colin, Clements, and Goldfarb and do a show with them. Like the Beyond era I grew up on. I won't say never, because at some point people will want a reunion special for something, and it theoretically could happen. So, if we can revive TV shows and movies and all that stuff, I'm sure podcasts can get revivals too, or at least specials. And that'd be fun. But that's like my big pie in the sky dream, would be some sort of reunion with the four of them, and somehow I'm involved, which would never, I don't think would happen.
Executive producer.
No, that's always who's the guy? If I'm listening to the show, I can say it with Greg, because there's always the same executive Patreon producers. But I can't think of it off the top of my head. You get into a rhythm with that man, you can just recite everything he says back to him.
Yeah.
Time and time.
I rehearsed the line like 23 times.
Yeah.
So if for everyone out there listening that heard me like just crush the mom and grop shop line.
Mom and grop shop?
It's because I rehearsed it so much. And to be fair, in a way, I've been rehearsing it for the last 13 years.
Really? We all have.
Yeah.
Deep down.
That was an important moment for me and probably me alone.
The Roper Report.
I wanted to do the beeps, but I didn't want to ask because it's like, all right, I'm encroaching now. I can't take the beeps. But if it was beyond, I would have done it.
Yeah. And maybe next time when you're on there with Blessing.
Exactly. I can beep.
I know you will. You'll get there.
Beep boop.
You have a PS5, right?
Yeah. Got that all digital.
Do you have a Series X?
I do.
You're all in, I'm all in. We're stuck.
Yeah. I'm fully encapsulated in video game consoles and debt.
Wait, you said you have the all digital?
Yeah.
Why'd you go that way?
Well, I could save $100, and I haven't bought a physical game in almost 2.5 years.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Yeah. Once I was talking to my friend Andrew Taylor about this recently, because he's a digital collector of things. Of like, there was a moment when I had a PlayStation when I was in the PS3 era. It was probably like a little bit after I started the podcast, where I was like, I'm not going to trade games anymore. I'm going to everything I buy. I'm going to buy to keep, whether I like it or not, because I am the type of person that will want to go and replay any video game at any given time at any point in my life, just because I A, love replaying video games, and B, I have weird cravings to play other games a lot, like last year in the pandemic times, like I did a lot of great replays. I replayed through the PS3 Ratchet and Clank games. I played through all the Sly Cooper games again,
Really quick, do you know how expensive those games are now?
No.
Physically? Oh my gosh. When they said they were shutting everything down, that kickstarted me like, I need to find the games I want physically, and then if I can't find them before this deadline, I'll buy them digitally. Into the Nexus, when I was looking for it, was going for $70-$80. Sly Collection, still like $80.
Damn.
The market is crazy. I actually got a good deal on Into the Nexus. I found it for $35. Some guy listed it on eBay for a buy it now price and had no idea what he was selling, and I was right place, right time. Anyway, man, that stuff's wild.
Yeah. So,
gosh.
When I buy anything, I know I'm never going to get rid of it. So that made the jump to digital a lot easier for me. Obviously, I'm just waiting to be castrated by Sony at this point. But
I was gonna say, man,
it is it's the ever living concern. But like them going back on it made me feel a little bit better about it. At the very least, like I will buy digitally the things that I want to have, and I'm fine. At some point, the world will end, and I won't be able to play any of my video games except what's saved on my hard drive. But also, most games right now, like, you have to be connected to an online server in order to boot them up at all. So it's like, I don't care. I really don't. And I hate switching discs. So, like, this is all, like, just plug me in. Whenever we get to it, just upload me to the AI, the PlayStation Network universe, and I'll just never come back. It's fine.
You can be uploaded, and then Mark Cerny can look at your ears.
Yeah, finally. Tell me what's wrong with them.
Oh my gosh.
I think the last game that I traded in were PS4 launch games. So, it's like Killzone Shadowfall, which I'd never even really played. Battlefield 4 and Assassin's Creed 4 were the last games I ever traded in 2014. So,
wow, that's a long time ago. I wish I could say the same thing. I sold my entire PS3 collection for an Xbox One terabyte. I still have that Xbox, but I deeply regret selling my whole PS3 collection. Seriously, I actually have a sizable chunk of it back now, thanks to the panic.
Yeah,
that ensued. But I do regret that a lot. I'm done getting rid of things. I'm not gonna I'm where you were at left almost a decade ago, so it just took me a lot longer to get here. But
makes sense. I grew up trading games in, like GameStop. And for me, Babbage's was like such an important trip to the mall, And all I had to do was work there for 6 months, and I never wanted to trade in a game again. So that's really all it took. Just like and then having the podcast and thinking about it, and just like all the games I own are really games that I like. There are very few that I would like never play again. So just thinking about it, like I'm just gonna have it. Like when I buy a game, it is a permanent relationship, and I kind of like the idea of that.
Yeah, I really enjoy having everything. Like I know that I'm not gonna get rid of like this thing or whatever, and I've gone back and bought physical versions of digital games because now I live in fear that the overlords will take away my license to play these things at any moment. Like, you can't take away my plastic disc. All the bits are here.
Swear the bits are here, and then you put it into your 25-year-old PlayStation 5, and then it says, "Please connect to an online server in order to launch this game." And then the bombs drop, and finally we're all set free of this curse.
Jim Ryan's face pops up and goes, "Ha ha 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 ha!" And you thought you could play PT forever. No, that stuff bums me out. What do you think of, like, what are we? We're November, so what, December? We're 6 months into this, 6 months into this, the gen. How are you feeling about it so far?
Man, it's great, and I feel like, especially like now, having been here talking about video games for like since the PS3 era, is me. Like, it's weird to think of that now coming in. Like, we're 2 generations removed from that at this point. Yeah. It's great, and I just like everything that Xbox has been doing has been like so my speed of FPS boost is like one of the greatest things that ever happened to console video games. It's like finally, like legitimately, I think the best part about PC games is like I'm gonna overclock this and just make it run as silky smooth as it's never run before. And that's always been like the appeal for me. Like, obviously mods is a part of that for a lot of people too, but that's too much work. So like, I've just been playing Tomb Raider 2013 remastered, the Xbox One version of that at 60 FPS now. It's like, man, like this is just so cool that I played this exact game 2014 when it was like on Xbox Games with Gold, and it, ran as well as it has ever done, and now it just looks like a totally different thing. Through zero effort, essentially. We just put out a new box.
Yeah.
And now we can kind of utilize this. And I think that is so great. I think all games running better is so great. I think ray tracing is super cool. Ray
tracing is the best.
Yeah, it's super rad. Especially like there are a few moments of like console games that have like really utilized it super well so far, but like there's like one moment in Resident Evil 8 that does it like super well, where you just like see a reflection of something like as it moves in real time, and I'm like, oh man, this is cool. I'm always so stoked to be on that first echelon. Like, it was way more of a bummer last time around too, because like when it was not Killzone, I, again, never really played it. But when it was infamous Second Son and Titanfall 1, like, it was such a different conversation than it is now. Like, I can now, on both consoles, be like, all right, I'm going to revisit, Evil Within 2, because now it runs at 60 FPS on PS5. Or I'm going to revisit, Death of the Outsider, which I just beat earlier this year for the first time, and now I can play it on, like, some mode called Original Game Plus, where you can play it with the powers from Dishonored 2. And it's like, okay, I'm not only going to enjoy this, but also play it at a higher frame rate, which is very important to me, as it turns out. So, yeah, I'm wholly impressed with everything. I'm stoked for Ratchet and Clank. I'm stoked for
oh my gosh,
Horizon. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Just that we were just talking about Ratchet and Clank, and it is still going, and it's still great, and it looks super fun.
I've been thinking about that actually, because Ratchet is coming out. They're really the only 3D mascot platformer, at least from the PS2 era, that is still kicking.
I mean, they're the only PlayStation 2 IP that's still kicking, if you really think about it.
Well, Gran Turismo and Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but like big stuff, God of War.
Yeah.
Thanks Cory Barlog for reinventing it.
Such a different, it's a very different God of War. Versus Ratchet and Clank is still Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank. Still great. No complaints.
It really, I think, is a testament to both Sony and Insomniac. And Insomniac they just were bought, after Spider-Man. So like the Ratchet games they were making before PS3 and PS2 or PS4, that was all still second-party relationship stuff. I think their dedication to Ratchet and continuing to make it like rock solid is insane. It's so good.
Yeah,
I did not watch that state of play. I was like, I already know I want this game. I don't need to see anything from it.
Yeah,
I'm so pumped.
Yeah, I played that first game like the day it came out, just because like one of my brothers got it for me for my birthday because I thought I would like it. That's so cool to think that it's still trucking. I think like there definitely been a lot of not great ones of those games.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think I missed the whole PS3 era of Ratchet, which is kind of why I focused on collecting those, and I want to play them. I hear Crack in Time is really great, but I heard Into the Nexus was kind of mediocre. And then there was the spin-offs on the PS3, like All for One and Full Frontal Assault, that aren't really Ratchet and Clank games. They're like different genres of tower defense and co-op and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. But even that, like, even those first three games, like Going Commando is like questionable, I think, by modern standards especially.
Yeah.
Up Your Arsenal, I think, is still really fun. But that first game, like, I'm glad it was remade. I think it plays a lot better, even if it kind of lacks certain parts of that original.
And it just got the 60 FPS boost, and I think it runs in 4K. I think.
It's cool to think that that's something that they didn't give up on, and boy, would it have been great if that had been Sly Cooper instead, You're like one of the few people I can tell this to.
Thieves in Time is so good.
It's so good.
Could you imagine if Thieves in Time could like get the technology of today? Those load times.
I know. I platinumed Thieves in Time last October because I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm certainly never going to do it once load times aren't a thing. So, and that is not a fun platinum, I would say. There's one. Do you remember the trophy where you have to open every map in the game?
Oh my gosh!
I had to play through the game like twice in a row just to do that, basically. Yeah, but it's great, and it looks great, and it's got so much charm and style, and it's just the music in that game especially. Oh my god, the soundtrack in that game is like, and I had forgotten all these things, and like that's kind of the black sheep of that 4-game franchise. It's not like there's a lot to go off of, but
yeah,
it is cool, and I would have really loved to see them continue on with that.
And it ended on that cliffhanger, man. And they were supposed to make a movie.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to the movie?
The movie, I am not surprised. Never happened, but
I think that project was killed, if not before, but definitely after the Ratchet and Clank movie didn't do so hot.
Which I've still never seen, but I would probably like it.
When I was buying all these PS3 games, I was like, maybe I should just grab this movie too. Like I'm in the zone. I did not, but it's so.
What do you think of the new consoles?
My Xbox looks cool.
Yeah.
I've played one game on it.
Yeah.
And it was Ori and the Will of the Wisp. And that's the only Ori game I played. I didn't play Blind Forest. But I played Ori I tried the 4K 120. Oh my gosh,
it's incredible.
Oh my gosh, it's insane.
It's
but
like
I did
watching magic.
I do think I switched it back to 4K 60 so I could sync it with my lights. I have the lights behind the TV. Ori is incredible.
Oh yeah,
I could just play that all day.
I played that, when it originally came out on 1, X, and it was definitely chunky at points where it's just like it clipping through the environment stuff would happen. And then I replayed it once I got the Series X at the 120 on my beautiful OLED screen. And
it's gorgeous.
It's incredible. Like front to back, I just replayed the whole game. I was like, boy, yeah, this is. And that was like going back and forth between the 120 mode and the 60 FPS mode to kind of train my eye to understand what the difference is was fun too, just for me. From like I've been playing games for so long, but having never been a PC player, like 144 stuff and 120 stuff I've never messed around with, but learning to appreciate that. And like that's another thing, FPS boost. Like you play Titanfall 2, the campaign at 120 right now, or the multiplayer. And it's like, that's so cool. That's so great.
Yeah, but that's the only thing I've done with my Xbox. So I think I tried like Forza Horizon 3 just to see what that game looked like. But honestly, there's not like in any Xbox games I want to play right now. I think a lot of people look at PlayStation, or maybe this isn't true because PS4 was such a success, but I think people look at PlayStation as like their exclusive console, and then the Xbox is their multi-platform console, especially toward the end of last gen with the One X, like because it just was more powerful than the PS4 Pro. It was just a fact.
Yeah.
And I'm the other way around. Xbox is my exclusive console, and I play everything else on my PlayStation. And because I like trophies.
Yeah, I mean, I do too.
I like the controller more. I'm personally the analog sticks next to each other, and X, circle, triangle, and square, and all that stuff. That's just what I've grown up on. That's what my brain is accustomed to, and I just prefer it. And Halo being delayed really kind of put a damper on the Xbox launch for me, because that's like what I wanted to play. But I love having it there. It looks nice, and I know more games are coming. It's people come in, so the new consoles in the living room with like the nice TV, the OLED 4K, the whole thing. But the rest of everything else is here in the office, plugged into my HD stuff's in a 3D TV, like that Sony one, so I can play games in 3D. And I got the CRT. So the two consoles are like opposite sides of the TV, and so people come in and go, well, the Xbox looks so much smaller. I'm like, well, it's stouter. The PlayStation is tall and thin, and the Xbox is like short and stubby. But they perform essentially the same.
They're buddies,
I always love, Yeah, I love a good Digital Foundry video.
Me too.
Comparing the two and seeing the pros and cons of each. I think Resident Evil recently was interesting to see the load time thing. I think Resident Evil took, I'm going to say 4, it may have taken up to 8, but like it was somewhere in that ballpark seconds on the Xbox to load. And I was like, that's incredible. And then they showed it on the PlayStation. It's like, what's a load screen? I'm like, how is this possible?
Yeah. Hearing about the Final Fantasy VII Intergrade, like that game had like 30-second load times, and now it's like nothing, non-existent.
I've seen a lot of people say that, what is the feature on Xbox called?
Quick Resume.
Quick Resume. People are saying and to me, I haven't used it, so I can't speak to like how life-changing that is, but I can say no load times, incredible.
It's the best.
It's totally ruined my like check Twitter while a game loads. Like that's just not a thing I can do anymore.
Yeah, I barely touch my phone anymore, which is great. It's just liberating.
It's definitely super great. So I've definitely put more time into my PlayStation, between Spider-Man and now Returnal, Resident Evil. I've got the Logan bought me Predator Hunting Grounds. Like I'm just, just play these silly things on there.
I'm a similar way, right? Like the things I come back to are a lot are on PlayStation. Excuse me, Jesus, burpees over here. Like Persona, like Spelunky 2, like I've put like since the New Year started, I probably put another 200 hours into Spelunky 2 or something, just over the course of 5 months. Like play twice a week for an hour at a time, or whatever. And like that's fine. It's never bothered me. Like I've never been. If you're gonna just commit to being the person that has both or whatever, like I don't know, like, you know what you're getting yourself into. Like, I'm an adult. Oh, yeah. I know I'm spending my money in a frivolous way, but
we had a sit down talk. I was like, Abby, this is what's happening.
I just need to do this. But you know,
I'm an adult now. I can buy both consoles when they launch. And I did get a PS4 at launch, but I didn't get an Xbox.
Yeah, that was the same with me too. Like I'd never gotten both at launch before, so this was just
made me feel cool. I was like, I'm a real adult.
Yeah, I'm probably only ever going to do this once, realistically. So I'm happy to do it here, and for like to fill the void with Game Pass or with the Xbox with me, it is like just Game Pass is such a great little thing. Like when I got my Xbox, like I was like, all right, I'm just gonna replay through Kingdom Hearts, you know, the whole franchise, like I do every 6 months apparently now, and you know, did that, you know, 100%ed 1, 2, and 3, and played around with Chain of Memories and stuff and all that in the Game Pass versions on Xbox, and like the example I used on the podcast was like with Quick Resume that I love is like, you know, playing through Kingdom Hearts or any like HD collection like that. Like it really changes the whole experience because like, you know, with Kingdom Hearts, the 1.5, 2.5 collection is like, all right, no, none of that. We're just like right back to the save screen where I left off, unpause, and I'm back in Kingdom Hearts 1 like within a second. It's just like, it's too much power. It's too exciting.
It sounds like I will eventually get there because, you know, what is this Perfect Dark like that from the Coalition? That sounds dope. There will be another Forza Horizon game at some point. I'm super stoked for that, and Halo obviously. And Sony really is Microsoft is really pouring a lot into building up like a first party. I mean, they just spent $7 billion. Indiana Jones, are you kidding me? Like finally I'll buy a Bethesda game. I'm really excited to see that.
It's machine games, so like I'm not ready to say it's gonna be great already. As the guy that really doesn't like the Wolfenstein games, I'm like, we'll see.
I have not finished the Wolfenstein games. I did not care for Doom.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I'm the guy who thinks Doom's too long, and don't get me started on Doom Eternal.
Yeah, to be fair, I've never played. Literally I've not touched Doom Eternal. So. Yeah, it's true.
I played like 3-4 levels. I was like, yep, this is too long. I'm just curious. I'm excited to see where they're going. I really like the direction Microsoft is going in. I just can't wait for them to like their course to be charted next to where I'm interested, and then I can join on the bandwagon and stuff. I do care. I think that's really super cool. My favorite thing though about all of this, besides just the way the PS5 looks, because I do like the dual tone and like the curvy kind of sexiness of it. That controller is insanity. I think people are still understating how incredibly cool the DualSense is. The feedback in it, those triggers, it's so good. And when you throw the 3D audio in, I love that controller so much. It feels so good in the hand. Returnal is nuts.
I've definitely I think I've just kind of gotten over it or acclimated to it to some extent. I will say there was the coolest thing that I think I've seen with the controller, because I enjoyed Astro's Playroom a lot. I didn't like the motion control part of it, so that kind of a little knock against it for me.
Everyone's still holding on to the 6-axis.
Yeah, just let it go, you guys. It's fine. Layer didn't work out, so we can just move on.
As long as I don't have to throw grenades with it, we're good.
What? back in the good old days. So the motion stuff wise is fine, but in RE8, there's a gun, an assault rifle that you have toward the end of that game, and when you're holding the trigger down, it pushes back up every single shot.
Is it like a kickback on the gun?
It feels like a trigger, like I've used a paintball gun. This is the closest I'm giving, but that kind of spring on the actual mechanism of the trigger, and it was so there, I didn't even really notice it the first time of how it fully pushes the trigger back up after every shot, because it happens so quickly. But once I started really letting it go, I'm oh, this is actually really cool. This is such a cool back and forth of motion that I've not really felt before. So, and even like stuff like Returnal doesn't do anything like that. So it was cool to see. And for the most part, Resident Evil 8 does not utilize those triggers very well, I think. So that it had that, I was like, okay, there's still more cool things to see here.
I get wrapped up in what I frankly think it will be too, because it's cool in the moment, and Astro definitely shows you the gimmicky side of it, and I think that works to great effect. But I start thinking, dang, Aloy's bow is gonna feel dope with this.
Yeah.
Man, what's Naughty Dog gonna do with like this new tech? How are they gonna make because their whole thing is immersion, and that's gonna be wild. You're telling me when I throw the Leviathan axe and it flies back into my hand, it's gonna you're gonna feel it in the controller, and you throw the 3D audio in, and then PSVR 2 is gonna have that same tech, and that kind of feedback in your hands in VR, I think, is going to be something that really separates it from competition, but brings immersion to the next level. It sounds, on paper, it sounds so gimmicky. We're going to make 3D audio, and we're going to have like haptic feedback and adaptive triggers. Like we're calling it, it's not the DualShock 5, it's the DualSense, because you get to feel the sense. But really, this is kind of the HD-ification of the other senses you use while playing games. We had the visual jump over a decade ago. And I mean, games still get better every generation. Like ray tracing we talked about is absolutely gorgeous and super great to see. But now I think companies are starting to step that stuff up, and that's going to be awesome.
Yeah. It's cool. I'm hopeful. I would really, it's one of those things of like, are we just going to see it in first-party Sony games or not? But I'm very curious to see if we see those kind of controller features migrate anywhere else, like the Xbox or Nintendo.
Well, Nintendo does have the HD Rumble. Like, did you ever play 1-2 Switch?
I didn't, but I've played other games that have utilized it pretty well.
I remember, we played at a friend's house. 1-2 Switch has this game where you hold the Joy-Con and you have to guess how many marbles are rolling around inside. And it genuinely feels like there are tiny little marbles rolling. I don't know how they do it, but it's what it feels like. So if they could amp it up a bit more, because that's in one Joy-Con in your hand, not necessarily in the Pro controller, which I think most people are using. I would love that, but I want Nintendo to upgrade the Switch. I just don't want them to do it this year to save my wallet.
Yeah, sure. I feel like it'll probably end up being early next year. It just doesn't make sense to do it this year.
I think doing it, 2017 was 4 years ago. I say 5 years later, Breath of the Wild 2, launch with the Switch Pro. Do it all over again. Do the same. Yeah. People will, first of all, Breath of the Wild 2 will just sell like gangbusters, but then that'll also incentivize new console sales.
Yeah, don't worry about the people complaining about inventory and breaking weapons on Twitter, because this is going to sell like gangbusters, y'all.
Yeah, their E3 is going to be, can't wait for their E3, because it's going to be super great and super disappointing all at the same time.
Oh yeah, I mean, no one knows how to thread that needle like Nintendo does.
That's why I love know how to nail it.
It's great. There's
no other company I love so much and I'm so disappointed in.
Yeah, but as long as you're having fun when you finally get to play the game, that's the part that matters, I think, to some extent.
Abby just bought that Pokemon Snap game.
It's great.
Teacher Appreciation Week. She got some gift cards to Target, and she said, "I will buy Pokemon Snap with these." And she did. She was playing it earlier. She might be playing it right now. I have no idea. Her Switch. She's the best gaming purchase I've probably ever made. She's put over 400 hours in Animal Crossing. I was like, buying a second Switch was absolutely the right call. I never would have seen mine again.
Yeah. That's good too.
It is good, because I forget who I talked about this with. Probably Logan or something, or Peter. It was Peter Spezia, episode 1 of this show. I used to think like, oh, I'm gonna find a gamer girl to be my girlfriend, and she'll play games with me and stuff. And then I realized, oh wait, Abby doesn't want to play all of this.
Abby doesn't want any part in this this situation. And to be frank, I don't want her any part of this either, because what a terrible thing you would wish upon someone, right? Like
exactly. And I figured that out before I started dating Abby. But yes, I think it's safe to say, maybe fair to say is better, but I think a lot of teenage boys are like, oh yeah, girl plays games is really cool. That'd be dope. And then it happens or it doesn't. Anyway, long story short, she plays, Animal Crossing. She bought 2 Point Hospital, now Pokemon Snap. Like, she knows what she likes, and I'm all here for it. I'm like, let's go. You want to play this game? I'll figure it out. You want these Hello Kitty Animal Crossing cards? I'll buy them at a Target in Indiana, and I'll have my mom send them down here for us. Like, I just want to help enable the things that she likes, because she's not, I'm trying to think of it. Resident Evil, like, we bought it last night, and she'll watch that. Or Heavy Rain. We did Heavy Rain earlier this year. That game, oh my gosh.
Got its hooks in her.
Yeah, we did Detroit Become Human, so she was familiar with their work. But she also loves serial killers and murder mysteries, and I was like, hey.
Just don't tell her about David Cage. Excuse me, Origami Killer.
The Origami Killer.
The Origami Killer.
Jason. Oh my
Jason.
gosh.
Me and my roommates still yelled at each other for no reason. That's how funny it is.
Oh my gosh, that game is so good. It was actually also the first time I ever had everyone survive. Like, actually save Jason.
Oh yeah, I did too, I guess. I'm thinking about it.
I typically, so when we play decision games like that, we make decisions together, unless I've played it before. And I've played Heavy Rain before. But there was a part at the end where, I want to say Claire. Is it Claire, the journalist chick?
Oof, that's a great question.
we're gonna roll with Claire.
Claire.
So Claire goes to the Origami Killer's apartment and said, Origami Killer, lights the whole place on fire, and you have to get out of there. I told Abby, I said, I'm sorry, I'm making an executive decision here. I read how to do this a long time ago, and I've always wanted to do it.
Oh, is it the refrigerator thing?
You have to hide in the refrigerator.
Yeah. I actually did that the first time I played it.
I totally,
because I watched too much Indiana Jones as a child, I guess.
Yeah, actually, I wish I had thought of it at the time, but it was one of those games where it just devolved really quick at the end. Like, I felt great, everyone was doing good, and then suddenly everyone is dying.
No, the FBI
I can't save
guy,
anyone.
The FBI guy died in my first run, but I went back and saved him. Because he died. He can die very nonchalantly, but he can also die very difficultly.
He, in my way, he had like an overdose. Like, I couldn't solve the case.
Yeah.
So he's on the drugs in the computer simulation, and he just ODs right there. I'm like, oh, I can't save you.
I got to, there's like a conveyor belt sequence, I believe, and he just gets hit in the head, and he's done. He's just, whoop, and he falls into a grinder, and I'm like, oh my god!
What is going on?
My second platinum trophy. There you go. It all comes back.
Oh my gosh, that's a tough plat.
Yeah. I had a lot of time when I was a kid.
Wow. I looked at the trophy list this time around. I was like, this kind of would be interesting to get. Maybe someday.
I got that one and my first, which was Batman Arkham Asylum, back to back.
Dude, talk about like hitting the ground running, like just really pushing through.
Yeah. It was the first time I had ever gotten into anything like that. The Arkham Asylum is just time consuming, but once you get good at that combat, once you get it, good.
That combat is so good. Oh my gosh. I'm so pumped for it.
There's going to be like 2 more of those games.
I'm worried about Suicide Squad. I'm pumped for Gotham Knights. So initially I was like, Gotham Knights, I don't want to play a co-op Batman game. And then I thought, wait a minute. I want to play a co-op Batman game. Yeah. Gotham Knights looks really fun. I replayed the Arkham games last year, and so it's kind of in my. It actually Arkham Asylum I didn't finish because my PS4 brick died. My PS4 Pro. Oh my gosh. So
that's awful.
I've bought a lot of PS4s, and this is not on purpose. Launch PS4. Woohoo. Then my dad got super into Hitman. He played the Hitman sniping game on his phone. Loves it. And so when Hitman 2 came out with the sniping missions, he was like, I want this. I need to play this game. I need to snipe.
That's so funny.
All the time. And so I was like, okay, well, the cheapest way to do this is to buy a PS4. At the time, I think that was like kind of the thing to do. And I was like, why don't you buy mine? It'll be cheaper than buying a Slim or whatever. It'll have a bigger hard drive. You'll get a better deal. I'll get a better deal than if I traded it in, and I'll go buy a Pro. So I bought a Pro. I was like, yeah, sweet. This is great. And then my it started having like hard drive issues. It started with Kingdom Hearts 3.
Of course.
Like it's not the game's fault. But it is kind of ironic that this is the game that like kind of started these symptoms, where I'd play the game, any game, for maybe 15 minutes or something, and then the console would just like crunch and crackle and like die, and sound would come out of the speakers, and it was like, what is going on here? I would do one of those like cold reboot safety mode database rebuilds, and then it would work fine for a few months. Replaying Arkham Asylum, and there's no saving it. It will not come back. It will not boot. I did a clean install, like wiped the whole thing, reinstalled the OS, nothing. This is a week after the warranty expired.
Of course it is.
And I'm like, well, now I'm in a pickle. And so this was before Death Stranding came out, months before. I think Jedi Fallen Order was also coming out somewhat close. I don't know. I wanted a PS4. This was also when we thought Last of Us Part 2 was coming out in 2019, I think.
Yeah, this was in October 2018, I would have guessed.
I was like, well, I need a PS4. I guess I'll get this Death Stranding one. So I bought the Death Stranding PS4 Pro. And it's cool with the paint hands on it and the countries and stuff. And then Sony up and announces The Last of Us Part 2 PS4. That I genuinely, Logan thinks I'm crazy, but I genuinely like the look of it more than the Death Stranding one. So I sold the Death Stranding PS4 and got the Last of Us one. So I've bought 4 of the 150 million PS4s out there. A small piece of the pie. You're welcome, Jim Ryan and Shuhei Yoshida.
I've only bought 2, but I had a launch PS4 that died within the first 3 months. So.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it was some super weird issue where it was probably a solder issue, if I had to guess, now that I know a little bit more about computers. But I remember it's normally it was at the time tucked on my desk behind my TV, and I took it out and put it on the ground to record this video of it freaking out to see if I could get clicks on YouTube, because that's in 2013.
That's what you do.
And everyone was very, very upset because it was on the carpet. And I've lived with this haunted of well, of course it's not working. It's on the carpet right now. I'm like, I promise. I just put it there for a second. I promise that's not what's going on. But once the internet is this is what it is, you can't tell them that they're wrong, even if they are. So
yeah, you will never bounce back from that.
Now my co-hosts love to remind me by saying well, I mean, you broke that PS4 by shoving carpet into the disk drive, dude. Why would you do that? So.
Oh my gosh. I don't know what started the whole why I bought so many PS4 tangent, but I've bought a lot of them. Hopefully I don't have to buy that many PS5s.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I mean, there's already rumors of a PS5 Pro system that's going to come out late next year or whatever, but
Of course. I mean, I think a big part of tech in general is when you buy something, you just have to know there's a newer, better thing already in the works.
Yeah.
You just have to accept that. And you and I, we both wanted to be at these launches. I think for people that really enjoy this hobby and are super into it, like you and I are, being there at launch is just something super exciting and fun. And, this launch was originally going to have Halo. Like, it was a really exciting time. And I wouldn't have traded that anything in the world. I don't, Of course, there's going to be a slimmer, more powerful PS5 later. I honestly, I don't know about more powerful, but I mean, eventually, sure. But definitely, they're going to make a slimmer one. They're going to make a tinier.
Sure.
Remember the fat PS2 to the slim PS2? I'm not saying it'll be that drastic, but there's definitely going to be a slim up in here.
Yeah, there's never not been a slim of any console ever at this point. So
it's just inevitable, and so you have to accept that when you buy it and think, I'll just upgrade eventually, like, or I'll get the PS6 or whatever. It's just kind of the way it goes. And I do feel bad for the people that don't pay attention to the news or know these things. Like, let's say the rumors for this Switch Pro thing start really heating up here in the back half of summer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start feeling really bad for people that go out and buy Switches like in the fall and all this stuff. I'm be like, please don't buy it. Just wait if you can.
Yeah.
Because if anything, you'll get a deal on the current thing.
Any of like the specialty Switches like that they've like the Animal Crossing one or the Mario 3D World one, like just like those, like, okay, this is the time to get in. It's like, oh, is it the time to get in?
We bought the Animal Crossing one, but that was a second Switch for Abby, and
And to be fair, that was before the pandemic started, so you didn't know that there was going to be a time vortex where all things would last 4 times as long. So it really did work out to be an investment.
It did. Or what is it? This new purple Switch Lite. It's like, come on, no. I mean, it's a good color. It's GameCube purple, sorta, but not the time, people.
But then you got to think about those people that exist totally separate of the ecosystem that we do, right? And they're fine. They won't even know about the Switch Pro. They'll probably use that for 3 months and then throw it in a bag and forget about it. Like there are people out there that do that. And it's just different than us.
What I'm really, really worried about, I'm starting to think it won't happen. But earlier this year, especially when they announced the Mario Switch, I was like, these guys out here are going to announce a Zelda Switch before they announce the Switch Pro.
Probably.
And I'm like, I'm going to buy the Zelda Switch. It's not going to be good for me.
It's only going to be bad for you, actually.
I'm hoping they do what they did with the new 3DS XL, which when that came to the States, they launched alongside Majora's Mask 3D. And that had the Majora's Mask themed Switch. Or, I'm sorry, 3DS. And that's what I bought. And that was kind of my mentality there was, now's the time to upgrade. I get the Zelda. I get the new. It'll be great.
That was a good one, too. I like the Majora's Mask 3DS. I did not get it, but...
No, it's one of my favorites. It's up there somewhere. My top shelf is my Zelda shelf. Shelf below that's my... I guess a Naughty Dog shelf. It's mostly Last of Us, but there's an Uncharted statue in there.
My mom got the Link Between Worlds 3DS XL, which I'm also a big fan
of. That was the one I almost bought before the new stuff came out. That was when I worked at Kmart. I almost bought that. It's very nice.
Yeah, I actually have the Animal Crossing 3DS XL, the new Leaf one with the little the Pop-Tart, as I like to call it.
Yeah, I remember that. I really hope they don't announce a Zelda Switch, is really what I'm saying. Unless it's a Pro.
I mean, they probably will. It might be a Pro, though. You can hold
if it is, then I'm fine. Because then I get whatever those upgrades are. Basically, all I'm looking for is if it can run Breath of the Wild smoother and Breath of the Wild 2 smoother.
That's really all that it needs to do.
Because really the rest of their games run rock solid. They're like kings of optimization.
They know how to optimize as well as Capcom, it would seem,
Yes.
with how
Capcom's
well Monster Hunter Rise runs on that thing. So
it's wild how much power certain companies can get out of that thing.
It's also like it's wild to think that we now can have a less powerful system that is totally great and wantable, desirable.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah, it's almost like the Vita, but people want it.
Kind of, or like the Wii, but it's not clearly falling behind, like that's what.
Yeah, I think art direction is a big part of that. So Origami King, not a great game overall.
A heart-crushing game, but certainly gorgeous.
Yeah, and it will look good for the foreseeable future. Yoshi's Woolly World, heck, Epic Yarn, Kirby's Epic Yarn on the Wii still looks great because they lean into an art style and art direction. Mario Odyssey, I think the only thing that'll look outdated in that game is the people. But honestly, they're supposed to look kind of odd because Mario is a cartoon man.
Yeah, he's just a cartoon man in a real world for some of that game.
Yeah, I think that they're leaning into that helps those games stand out on weaker hardware. Proves that art direction is just as important as raw horsepower.
And it proves you that you don't have to have the most powerful system to have a desirable system.
Yeah, definitely. Holy smokes, they just passed 85 million Switches.
Yeah, which is
it's going to surpass the Wii here by the end of the year. The Wii.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the Switch is setting its sights on the PS2. Will it pass the PS2? I don't know. I kind of hope so, just because it'd be fun.
Yeah, it's always good to have something new kind of come to the top.
Yeah.
I mean, the PS5's already setting its sights on the PS4, you know? Like, that's just the world we live in now, where people just really love video games.
It's great. I play Ultimate Frisbee with a bunch of people, and one of them is
just throw around a Switch, you know?
Yeah. No, but the one guy, every now and then he mentions, he's like, the last game I played was like Red Dead Redemption on my PS3.
Jesus.
I was like,
that's very specific.
I got Red Dead Redemption 2 on PS4. He's like, I have a PS4. I have God of War, and I have Red Dead. I just haven't played them. Because if I play them, I know what's going to happen to me. Well, yeah, that's respectable. They're all really good. The other day, he dropped a Max Payne 3 reference. He was like, why don't they make games like this anymore? And I said, you know what? That's a great question. Why don't they make Max Payne 3 style games anymore? Come on, Rockstar.
Whew. That's another deep cut. Very specific games.
Like he clearly had certain tastes, like God of War and Rockstar games. Like it clearly could tell the kind of like games he wanted to play, which honestly are games that I love to play. So, but man, Max Payne 3, why is that game not back compat? Figure it out, Rockstar. Figure it out.
It's not?
It is not back compat on Xbox. I swear.
They probably very specifically did not give them the okay to do it, which means
I think the reasoning is music licensing.
Probably.
Which I'm like, come on, Rockstar. Just pay the band.
It's so funny to think of like all these 360 era games that had licensed music that like are in some way, shape, or form fucked. Mm-hmm. Like totally screwed out of possibly being modern in any sense.
Drives me up the wall.
Like Alan Wake was in that for a while, you know, but they re-upped the license, I think, when they bought the IP back from Microsoft, right? So yeah, that is on backwards compatible. That's on Game Pass, you know.
Yeah, and I think rumor is they're working on another one. Like that's the follow-up because Control had some Alan Wakey DLC or something, right?
Yeah, it's also like it's basically ties Alan Wake into the universe essentially. It's very good.
Quantum Break universe.
Quantum Break's in that universe.
Their games are all tied together except Max Payne because Rockstar owns that now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Rockstar owns it all outright.
But Max Payne 1 and 2 like exists in a referential form via Alan Wake. You know,
I'm sure that's fine. Rockstar clearly only cares about GTA and Red Dead now.
I think it's like Alex Casey is the name of the detective that is essentially Max Payne that Alan Wake wrote, right? But what's great is just another layer of the Controlverse in the AWE DLC, in the Alan Wake DLC. One of the kind of offshoot documents is like, there's a FBI detective named Alex Casey that's looking for Alan Wake, like a real person. Are we not going to just talk about the fact that Alan Wake wrote a person named Alex Casey and that now this person is real and looking for him? So, like, that's another thread, you know, in the
That sounds like, did you ever see Stranger Than Fiction with Will Ferrell?
I haven't.
Rough gist of that movie. It's like comedy, dramedy, I guess, drama comedy. Anyway, Will Ferrell plays this businessy guy or whatever, and suddenly one day he starts hearing narration over his life, and it turns out some famous author is writing a book that is his person.
I remember seeing trailers for this movie.
Yeah, so he's a real person, but also a written character in this story that's like happening in real time. I like that movie quite a bit. So does my mom. She's a big fan of it.
Yeah, it's just the Remedy vibe is exciting. We live in an exciting time for them, and they're making this unannounced Alan Wake game, Alan Wake / Control game with that's their Epic license.
Yeah,
so
that's the Epic project.
Get a bunch of money from Epic Games, which is also great for me as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, them and Playdead and what's that company called? The guy who made Shadow of the Colossus and Last Guardian. They're over there now, which is really good, I think.
Because they get a lot of money, you know. That just means that the thing that they're making will probably come out, which I'm excited about.
Maybe in 1 year's less time.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I think kind of there's no real smooth segue for this one, but who really cares? Alex, you're big Persona boy over there. You love Persona. I love Persona, but not as much. So I love Persona. I don't know. Like you
like Persona, but I love Persona.
Sure, that's a good way to put it. I have something to admit. I bought a Vita back in the day from a coworker when I worked at a sushi restaurant.
Okay.
Like he was like, I got this Vita to sell. He actually had two. He had the white one and the black one. And originally I was going to buy the white one, and then he's like, my parents say the white one will be worth more money someday, so I'll sell you the black one. I was like, I don't care. Whatever.
He was probably right, to be fair.
Honestly, absolutely. But all I cared about was getting a Vita.
Yeah.
And so I bought this Vita from him. I forget for how much, and went out to a GameStop. The only game they had on the shelf was Persona 4 Golden. I was like, I heard Greg talk about this game. I'll buy it. Super glad I did, because the physical version of Persona 4 Golden goes for $50-$60 now, I think.
Damn. I have like absurd. 3 of them, so
oh surprising. My gosh, you gold mine over there.
A literal golden mine.
Very good. Honestly,
the moment where very good, excellent.
Oh my gosh, I'm thinking about that's so good. And I played how much who's Troy Baker, the biker boy?
Kanji Tatsumi.
That is where I stopped.
That's the second dungeon. Congratulations. Second of 8, I believe.
Yes. My big qualm, there are 2 issues. One's my fault, one's game design fault.
Sure.
Game design fault first. You can't just save in a dungeon and they're randomly generated. And when you do a dungeon, you just need to commit to the whole dungeon. You're going to be here for a few hours. Just buckle up. And I didn't really understand that. So I struggled with that quite a bit. And I always thought that the game would look better on the TV anyway. The part that was my fault, which was, so I understood this was a big Japanese RPG, a big long game. I was like, I needed something a little bit more than just, oh, this is a good game. You probably will like it, to incentivize me to play. And the incentivization was the platinum, because everyone talks about how hard this platinum is. And so I was following a guide to optimize, social links and get everything. And I think those 2 things were wearing me down. And it was Persona 4 Golden became work. And it shouldn't have become work. It should have just been something I played for fun.
Same thing happened to Persona 3 Portable for me. I totally understand.
Yeah, and so I never beat it. And I'm probably asking for it now because I'm talking about it on a public podcast, but I still don't know who the murder, the plot twist of the game has not been revealed to me. I've remained dark on the game. And please Please leave it that way. Please, listener, don't spoil this game for me.
It's like the bummer thing is like, by modern standards, it's like kind of super obvious now.
Maybe it would be when I go back someday.
Yeah, I think if you went back right now, right, you'd probably be like, oh, I think it's probably this person. And it's so hard to tell people, like, that's not what the game's about. Like, right. It doesn't matter that you know who it is. Like,
and I think knowing what I know about Persona 5, which is a game that took me like 2 or 3 years to beat, because I would play it in like 20-hour chunks. Sure. Be like, I need a break.
Yeah, whatever gets
not
you
because
through
the game's bad, but I would switch to something else. But I always told myself, I'm like, this is not going to be Persona 4 Golden. I'm going to come back and beat this, and like I just need to remember where I left off narratively, because the gameplay is not hard to forget or whatever. Like, it's Pokemon and becoming best friends with people.
Yeah, it's Pokemon and dating sim. Like, you're just hitting X over and over again. It's really not hard, you guys.
Yeah, and so I did finally beat Persona 4 or 5. I'm sorry, and I love it. Oh my gosh, the game is so good. I did have to drop it to easy because I didn't fight all the time.
Okay,
would avoid fights. So the final boss would like one hit me.
Oh,
it's like at a certain point. There's I don't want to spoil it because but picture the final boss. There would be a part like this. He's broken up into phases, and I'd get to this phase where I'd send off a partner to like go distract it or to hit it or do whatever Kanji would do. Not Kanji, Ryuji. And when that attack commenced, everyone just would die. Like, there's nothing I could do. And I was like, well, if I'm going to beat this, I'm just going to have to drop it to easy. Like, I'm not going to go out there and grind 10, 15 more levels and then come back and try again. So I dropped to easy and I beat the game, and it's great and I love it. Oh, so very much. The soundtrack is phenomenal. Like, basically, Persona games are great. And I have a PS TV now. I feel like I can play Golden the way God intended on the TV, because when I sit down to play a TV game, I know I'm like committed to it instead of a portable game where I can put it down or whatever.
I prefer to play Golden on the PS TV as well. So I know I am in the very minority of people that think that. All the people are like, well, if Persona 5 doesn't come to Switch, I'm never going to play it.
Well, you're missing out. That's all I'm going to say to those people.
I've never I try not to get too, again, try and be as chill about disagreeing with people as possible,
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's
I'm glad
their
you played.
loss.
I'm glad you played 5. Yeah, exactly. It's their loss. It's a great game. Like, it's the thing with the killer with Persona 4 is like, I could tell you in Persona 5 that at some point you fight God, but it's not gonna mean anything. Like, if I just say that, you're not. Once you still get to the moment or whatever where you get the hit R1 and shoot the thing, it's like that's still gonna be great because of everything that you had to do to get there. I promise, and that's the same thing.
It's a journey instead of like the
destination. Points. Yeah, it's that is Persona to a T, and I know that is so contrary to so many video games. Like, if you think about like so many games that revolve around boss fights and revolve around climax and kind of these moments, but Persona is like, no, we're gonna drip feed you this as slow as possible, so all the moments that feel climactic are just like, it's almost like you're directly injecting drugs into your veins because of how climactic it feels. Like, that's how powerful this vibe is. It wraps itself around you and you don't even realize. And for some people, it's like, I follow someone on Twitter. I won't necessarily put them on blast, but they're a friend of mine, and I like his opinions on things a lot, but he's like, I just do not want to play a game that is like someone tells me it's 100 hours long. But it's hard to tell someone, like, when you play Persona, it doesn't feel like it's 100 hours long,
It is so hard to tell. I think my final time was like 120. And that's pretty common. Yeah, that's pretty common, I think. And that's just for a first run through. And it's hard to get anyone to commit to
anything ever
hours.
At any point.
Yeah. That is absolutely.
It's a pandemic, man. Why would anyone want to do anything ever?
And so when you tell them, oh yeah, to beat this, it'll take you 120 hours. I mean, I'm not a good testament to it either. Oh, it took you 3 years? I'm so on and off, I swear. It's so hard, but when you do play it, it genuinely doesn't feel like that at all. You're just, I live for those free days where I can just go do my thing. So my Kawakami, best girl. I mean, actually, if I played it again, I'd choose Makoto, I think, like as actual, but Kawakami is who I chose. Love Kawakami. I get made fun of by Logan and our other friends in our like super tiny model.
Great. I think everyone's great in that game is the thing.
They really are. When you it's so good pound for pound. But I want to ask you, because you're such a big Persona fan. I have a couple of questions, but specifically the one that's always on my mind lately. Royal.
Yes.
This is where I struggle with the 120 hours. I'm I've already played this game. What? And people are like, it's so worth it. You gotta do it again. And I do understand, no spoilers, but I do understand that there's like an additional palace or something with one of the core characters later on. Like a certain character gets a lot more attention than they did the first time around. And I think you know who I'm talking about. But just tell me, what's up with the Royal? Like, why when someday when I go, it's time to replay Persona 5 for the next 4 years, why do I need to pick up Royal instead?
It's so hard. This is another thing of like, it's in that same category of like, it's not going to feel like 100 hours type deal of like, I can tell you that, but those words don't mean anything without context, I think. It's, you know, Persona 5, like the original version, feels almost like a neutered version of that story because I know how it is told in this other version, right? It's more than just, we added some stuff. It's like, we thought about what these characters want and what these characters are like, and we wanted to make threads in the story that made those lines more personal, right? Like, I like Ryuji in Persona 5. Like, my feeling on him by the end of that game was he's like the exact kind of person that I would know but probably never want to hang out with, but I wouldn't dislike. In Persona 5 Royal, like, there's just a lot of really great changes to how, and I'm just using one character as an example. There's a lot of great changes to how, like, what that character wants to do by the end of the game and how they present that to you and how you and that character, how you and Ryuji, like, get there together as friends as well. That's, like, completely absent from the original Persona 5 that makes that character feel like a completely different, like, he goes on a different kind of journey because the destination is so much more personal. And that's kind of like the metaphor for Royal as a whole is, you know, you're going to meet characters like Kasumi that are new and you've not known before, but they also act as like, oh, this feels like it meets the tone of this, or this feels like it meets the world that Persona 5 has built. You're going to meet characters like Maruki that are really interesting and ask questions of the characters that challenge how they think about things, like Ryuji of how he hates adults or whatever, or how he has trouble trusting people, and that will send them on a path that leads them to a very similar but differently satisfying ending. But it's more than that, because it's, you know, you're just going to get more scenes with these characters. You're going to get more, the dialogue is rewritten to make more sense, or you're just going to get to be able to spend more time with them, on top of knowing that, like, this is going to end differently. And it's not gonna be different, right? You know, you're still gonna have to fight God. You know, that's still gonna be part of it, but you're gonna get there, and there's gonna be more after it, and it's gonna feel way more personal and way closer to home. The best thing, like, you're in a great position because you've played Persona 5, and that took a long time. So, like, honestly, for you, you know, whenever the mood strikes you and you're like, I'm ready to replay Persona 5, and you sit down to play Royal, it will feel in the same way, like, I'm playing Persona 5 again, but it'll just be better in every way, you know, like, and there will be parts of it like, oh, I don't remember this, or like, this might have been there, but, you know, like, this just fits, so I'm just gonna go with it. So it'll toe the line, I think, of like being nostalgic and fun and exciting to go back to, and like, seeing an old friend again, while also feeling fresh and new and exciting, and you're going to be into the changes that they made, I think. So just look at it that way. Like, whenever you get to it, it'll just be great when it's there.
Yeah, like seeing a friend you haven't seen in a very long time, and sure, they've changed and all the stuff you've moved, but you come back and they're the same, but they're also different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get it someday. Like, I do plan to. It's just, I feel like it's one of those staple games that you just kind of want to own and have there. It almost feels comforting to have it on the shelf, you know? It's like, I listen to the soundtrack all the flipping time. Like, it's just, man, it's so good.
New music's very good too, I'll say.
In Royal?
Mm-hmm.
Did you do Strikers? Are you like that?
I played a little
Persona,
bit.
Like, but do you seek out the spin-off games, or are you just like?
I used to, but like they're not scratching the same itch. They're just different things. Like, I played Persona Q, the first one, and I've never played an Etrian Odyssey game. You know, for point of reference, where you're like drawing the map and whatnot. And it is absolutely one of those, and it's at the same time has a lot of Persona vibes that are great. And fun. Like, I played Persona 4 Arena and Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, which is super great because, like, in Ultimax you get to see the grown-up versions of all the Persona 3 characters, which is the only time they've ever really done that, as far as I know. And I love Persona 3, and seeing them, like, how they take their kind of that ideal that they carry with them through the end of the game, and then transform it into what they've decided to do for the rest of their life is cool. So you get a lot of satisfaction there. So there's reasons to play the Persona spin-offs, but it's nothing like Golden or Persona 3 Fez or Royal. It's like, those are just like, I think, the way that those games are meant to be played.
Yeah, I definitely know that Golden is the one that's supposed to be played over just base Persona 4. It's certainly the more accessible one now that it's on PC as well.
And the reasons for that are very similar to the reasons I would tell someone to play Persona 5 Royal over the original. It's like, hey, Marie is in Golden, and she is not in Persona 4, you know, otherwise. So, and she's a great character that is super fun and goes to a lot of cool places in the same regard as Kasumi and in Persona 5, and she's great.
It is. I seriously, it's weird. I feel like a lesser fan, if that makes any sense. It's like, I love these games, but I also have not put in the time or commitment, or sometimes I feel like I'm a poser. It's like, I like Persona. I fit in, right?
I mean, as with all things, you have to divorce yourself from that kind of mentality just in general. But I would say that the best thing about Persona is that, in my opinion, as someone who's played 3, 4, and 5, you know, and I've not played 1 or 2, and I've not played the alt version of 2 either, and I know people that have, and I know people that swear by them, nor have I played like a proper Shin Megami Tensei game. If you've finished a Persona game, you're a fan, you know, because like Persona 3 is 100 hours, Persona 4 is 60 hours, or 80 hours depending, and Persona 5 is 100 to 130 hours, right? Like, if you've played any of those games, like, if you've seen what makes Persona special, which is getting to God and it making sense, then you're a fan. You get it. You're here. You're part of the family, as far as I'm concerned. You know.
Yeah,
just know that there's more to play and more to see. Like, Golden is for some folks better than Persona 5, and that's a great game. Persona 3 Fez is like this totally somber, sad version of Persona that is so different and such a wholly different, you know, like, people's personas level up and transform automatically in that game, you know, like, you can only romance female social links in that game. You can't not romance them, so, and people get jealous.
You have to?
Yeah, if you're going to get to stage 10 in a social link in Persona 3 and it's a female character, it's going to be romantic, you know? Like, there's no, like...
Oh, interesting.
You don't get to choose. That's something they added with 4, you know? Like...
Okay.
You see how the games change and evolve, and I like them all individually, even though, you know, like, Persona 3 mechanically is like a super not great game comparatively, but it's also like super hard because of the way you have to play it, because you can't control your companions and stuff. So like, it's super satisfying to play in a way that I think 4 and 5 aren't, you know? So like, everything has its own kind of aspect to it.
Yeah, so I get the itch for Persona 4 a lot, especially since I picked up a Vita TV this year. Like, maybe I should do that.
I think that's what you should just play Persona 4 Golden, and if you know, like, see if you can even go back to that game after playing 5, because you just might not be able to. I don't know how you are about that stuff. You play a lot of old games, so you're probably fine with it.
Yeah. I'm usually pretty good about playing old stuff, but in my head, honestly, I feel like 4 is, I could be way off here, but I feel like 4 is very similar to 5 and just kind of the basic mechanics of it. I remember in combat, like, I chose what I wanted each person to do. I remember spending time and going around places. Juness, like, come on, guy, like, you go spend time.
Losing Baton Pass is a hard thing to go back after, I'll say.
I do like Baton Pass.
And what I'll say about Persona 5 Royal, there's just infinite number of mechanical changes they made to iterate on Persona 5 to Royal, but Baton Pass is no longer locked behind a social, your confidant link, so you get Baton Pass with Haru even if you never talk to her ever in your life. And also there are boss fights specifically designed around Baton Pass, and that is a mechanical challenge that is super interesting.
It sounds actually quite satisfying if you pull it off and you win that fight.
You get way more quadruple passes in Royal than you ever do in the original Persona 5.
I like the sound of that.
And you can level up your Baton Pass. You can also level up your technical skill. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of great stuff in that game.
Yeah, well, I'll probably have to snag it at some point. Hopefully I can get one of those steel cases still, because the Persona 5 steel case is still, I think, my favorite steel case ever.
It's very nice. I lost it. I don't know where it went, but yeah, bummer. I think I lost it in my move. But
move.
Yeah. Again, the all digital world, I just let myself go. I still have the collector's edition box. Persona 5 is the only collector's edition I've bought in the last 10 years. So I still have that, so I'm happy with that.
As long as you can get the steel case, you can always buy a replacement if you really wanted to complete the set once more.
I think I still have my Persona 3 physical copy. I still have Persona 4 for PS2 as well. So.
Look at you. I have a buddy who's trying to collect all of the Persona games.
Good luck.
It's a very expensive hobby, apparently. Yeah. I always keep an eye out for him, though. If I'm at like a retro store, you know, a mom and grop shop, as it were.
Mom and grop shop, yeah.
And I see anything Persona or Shimigami or Atlas, like Catherine or anything like that, I send him a picture. I'm like, you need this? And he'll tell me. And if he does, I'll pick it up for him. I picked up it's in my closet, Devil something Saga 1 and 2, or
Devil Survivor, I think is what it is.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, I need those. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I need it, please.
I grabbed it. The prices were fair, apparently, for what he was able to look up, so I grabbed that for him. So next time I'm in Indiana, I have to like smuggle these anime games in my suitcase. Swear TSA. It's for a friend.
I swear, this Shin Megami Tensei is not a drug.
Only to some people.
Only
not
to
me. But what is a drug to me? A game with a Naughty Dog logo slapped on it.
Yeah.
This should be no secret to anyone who listens and is familiar with my work, but I love anything and practically everything Naughty Dog loves. And what I wrote down originally in the notes was going dark on The Last of Us Part 2, because you, sir, from my understanding, were like the polar opposite of me, where I dove in and was like, I'm going to write a whole history about this, so I'm going to soak everything up, and somehow still didn't have the game spoiled for me before launch. Thank you, mute filters. But and you apparently didn't watch. You watched whatever the reveal. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
In the room for the reveal trailer, so I couldn't avoid.
You were there with Logan. Logan was there. Logan was there. He met. That was
Neil
the day.
That was like the same day I had met him. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the big reveal at PSX. What a trailer! Oh my gosh,
great trailer! Yeah. I was so excited at the time.
But before we started recording, you shared with me that you were not, did not care for or do not like The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah,
which I think,
it's always
which
such
I think is a far
thing.
more interesting thing, simply because I don't. Most people I talk to at least liked it, and I don't really talk. I've played the game 3 times. Like, it's no secret. I have the posters over here. I've got art above the door. Like, I'm all in. I love it so much. But I'm curious why. Like, what's up? This is not to me say, how dare you?
Let me convince you that you're wrong.
I have no desire to do that. If I think in particular with Part 2, if you like it, you like it, and if you don't like it, there's nothing I could say or do.
Yeah.
To convince you that this is like, wow, what a great game.
It's kind of like Persona.
This is
in
a very
regard.
divisive game.
Like if someone played 100 hours of Persona 5 and they're like, I did not like that game, I'd be like, there's nothing I'm going to tell you that's going to change your mind about that, I guess.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And Last of Us is like 30 hours or 20 hours depending on how you play it, and I feel like by the end of it, you're gonna know one way or the other how you feel about it. Yeah, I mean, and
definitely
so I played it. I played it on my own, and I played it. I had my roommate played it. Like he doesn't play a lot of video games. Like it's funny you mentioned like Red Dead 1 and 2, two of his favorite games of all time. I actually bought Red Dead 2 for him, and he still plays it to this day. Like he just likes to go around and go fishing and take pictures and.
That's another game I think about going back to a lot.
Which I don't. I've played the first 2 hours of Red Dead 2. I'm like, cool. I'll never play this ever again. So, but maybe I'll play it again at some point. But like, it's just not my bag, and it didn't super click with me. And I don't really like cowboys to begin with. So like, I'm just happy for him to have that. Like, so I played. He also loved the first Last of Us, which I've been on record that is one of my favorite games of all time, which is it no longer is because of Last of Us Part 2. But
but the plot thickens.
But like, so he wanted to play this, and he played it. Normally, like I'll play a game and he'll watch. So he played the whole thing over the course of like 4 months. We played it in like 2-hour sessions or 1-hour sessions. So like I also got to take in, and I was like, I'm not going to say anything the whole time we play. I have my own opinion about this game. I don't care if you like it or hate it. I want you to form your own opinion about it. I don't want to have an impact on that. So I just kind of hung out with him while he played it. And it's cool because I thought I was being very thorough, but like I missed the guitar scene early on.
Oh, really? I mean, not that guitar scene would change your mind about the game, but that's interesting that you missed that. Yeah,
it's just like one of those things. Like I thought I checked every building, literally the one I hadn't checked. Yeah. And so like he saw that, and I got to see that when he played. And like he just had kind of a different take on a lot of things. Yeah, I just think that game is just it's too long, and if you're one of those people that's like, I don't understand what you mean by it being too long. The amount of times I saw people have that conversation of is this or is this not too long? Of like, I don't know how to engage on that. Like for me, you can look at I'll say like the checkpoint system lets you, like the chapter system lets you just choose an encounter. But you can look and see that there's like 75% more encounters in Abby's playthrough versus Ellie's, and I can tell you, I could just show this next to you. Like, there's too much fighting in the second half of this game. I'm sorry, but there is. Especially coming off of Uncharted 4, which had very little fighting comparatively to the rest of that franchise.
Especially in the back half.
Yeah, especially in the back half. And it's cool. I was so happy to see a third-person shooter that's like, we're just gonna not have you fight as much. And
that was originally the goal. Like, they wanted like you to go into a third or half that game without picking up a gun. That was Amy Hennig's, like, part of Amy Hennig's original vision for that game. And I think a lot of that still lingers over it. And they really, I mean, actually, the day we're recording this, Uncharted 4 is 5 years old today. The day we're recording this. Yeah. And so that game's been on my mind a lot today in particular. But that game really hit its landing pretty strong. But it definitely has a different vibe and feel. But I think part of part 2, as far as pacing goes, but people thought Uncharted 4 was long.
It is long
as well, but too long. See,
too long. It's harder for me to commit to that with Uncharted 4 at least.
And so with both those games, part 2 and Uncharted 4, I think it kind of ties back into Persona. Like, Persona has 100 hours, right? That sounds crazy, but it doesn't feel like it when you're playing it. It's a good pace, you're enjoying it, and you're really kind of sucked into what you're doing. And for me, a Naughty Dog game, I'm sucked into it. Like, I'm all in, I'm enjoying every moment, and so it didn't feel like a 30. Across the 3 playthroughs, I've spent 80 hours in Last of Us Part 2, and I also have the itch to replay that game. 1 and 2. Like, it's just a world I love spending time in, so that time flies by. But especially if you're not feeling it or enjoying it for whatever reason, it's definitely gonna feel longer. And the fact that there is so much in that back half of that game, I definitely can see like that. I feel that's how the feeling. It's not so much just the hours and like time crunch. It's really the feel of the game and the connection to the player there, and that's for any game.
And a lot of it for me too is like, I do not like it, at least without any heads up, that you're going to kind of gut my mechanical repertoire, right? And Abby has her own kind of set of stuff that you have to figure out and do. And it's all very different. And it's all obviously intentionally very similar to how Joel plays. But and I appreciate that. I never cared for her too much as a character. Like, it's so funny because in the whole Abby part of the story, I like Abby the most of all of those characters. I think all the other characters are legitimately bad, especially someone like Owen, who is like just a bad guy, and I like that they kind of make him out to be a good dude, but he's just not a good dude. And at the end of the day, like, Abby is just a bully. You know, like, if Abby were a person in our world, Abby is a tough, solve with her fists kind of person, and she's just a bully. You know, she is. If you get in her way, she will push you around because she doesn't care. And I like their approach to trying to get you to empathize with her, and up to an extent, because I think like you're not going to. The tricky thing is like with all characters, I think you are not going to care about them without some kind of reflection of them. And it's what made me care about Ellie's story for longer until I didn't anymore, because she had, at the very least, Dina as a foil character to her, who is different and felt differently about things. But then, you know, there's a lot of enabling, and ultimately, like, everything that happens between Ellie and Dina is, like, completely forgettable, and I think just a waste. Like Dina at no point ever kind of, I think, confronts Ellie before we're way too late for that. You know, in a very similar situation to like Abby has all of these characters around her that are bad, uninteresting, poorly written, sometimes like stereotypically racially. Like Manny, I think is a terrible character, and I don't know why so many people like him, especially like with how he is so Spanglish, and that is like such a thing that bothers me now that it's been pointed out to me. And so like all of these things kind of that would, I think, make Abby more interesting are there, and they're all bad, and so they don't really go far to make her more interesting. And then I'm just supposed to believe that she has a relationship with this kid that she doesn't, and they don't have any meaningful conversations outside of a couple that I liked. And the more I think about it, I just think that game fails its characters by rushing them forward at one another constantly. And everything they try and do or set up that's interesting with those characters is a failure. And I think that game, if it's about hate and the cycles of violence as much as it is, it never deals with the consequences of that. It ends before Ellie really has to deal with them. Abby essentially gets away with it, and no one ever says, like there's never any like moment where you feel like it was all building to a point for me. Not that it has to. Like I think it's interesting to try and like put a climax where there is an anticlimax, and I think that like where the two stories split off is kind of an interesting point. I just like at that point I didn't care, and I think it was a lot of combat before then that I realized that I didn't care, and then I just had to do more of it that just desensitized me more to it. It just like I see exactly what that game was going for, and it did not work for me at all. And I think it I think it gets more credit than it deserves, I guess. But you know, in that same breath, I do, you know, it's one of those things where as someone who was there for The Last of Us Part 1, and that did work for me, and seeing this kind of like unraveled the Naughty Dog aesthetic for me to some extent, and that's why like it changed how I felt about The Last of Us Part 1. Not that I don't like that game anymore, it's just like if you really think of it in a parts of a story, like everything The Last of Us Part 1, which was just these two characters and how they interact with each other and how that kind of culminated in the relationship they had by the end of it. Everything of that, if you now think of it as a setup for the consequences that occur in Last of Us Part 2, makes me not care at all. Because like my feeling coming into Last of Us Part 1 is like I didn't want a sequel to The Last of Us because I thought it would have to be a story about the consequences for what Joel did. And I didn't care about that story. I didn't want to see it because I think that story is way more interesting if you don't know exactly what happens in it. And then they just told that story, and I didn't care for it. You know, like once I realized, like very early on, that that's what that game is about, I was like, oh, I'm probably not gonna like this.
When you switch to control Abby the first time in the game,
I knew exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah,
yeah, me too.
It didn't take long at all.
And I was like, okay. And it was interesting. Like, I was ready to be interested in it, and I thought, like, of course, this is what Joel deserved. He killed a bunch of people. Somebody's going to come kill you. Like this is just this world that they've set up, and I get it. Let's see what they do with it. And I just thought they just flubbed it. I just thought exactly what they did with it was super not anything I cared about. And now, like, the idea of a third one is like, boy, you need to let all of these characters go. You need to let all of this go. And I think, start something different and new. Because if the game had just been Abby and had nothing to do with Joel and Ellie, it would have been a better video game.
That's...
For me.
Interesting. That's interesting. I think it's... I feel like it's fair to say it's undeniable that what they tried to do was incredibly difficult.
And ambitious. Which is why I give it a lot of credit. Like, they went for it.
I really think there hasn't been a AAA game that's tried to pull something off like this since Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. Have you played Metal Gear?
Yeah, I'm a big Metal Gear head.
I just think that, like, the bait and switch in Sons of Liberty, like, especially coming hot, if you have no context for 3 through the rest of it, like, it's just the second Metal Gear Solid game. It's like, oh, I'm not going to play as Snake? What? And then it takes the first plot of that game and completely subverts it in the best Hideo Kojima way imaginable. It's so good. And I think they really tried to kind of emulate that on some level of this really big and hard bait and switch. Feels like cheap to say, but, you know, they subverted expectations. And whether that succeeds or not, I think falls on them and the player who's playing it. And I think it's interesting to hear your perspective on the game and your experience with it, because me personally, I was just soaking it up from the beginning. I think Abby's story actually, it did really work for me. And I think, I don't know, when I play a game, I feel like I'm whoever that character is. On some level, I identify. I think that's a thing a lot of people do, and just kind of thinking about, well, why did she do this? And then, you know, does playing as her impact how I feel going through this journey? And it did for me. And in the end, then switching back to Ellie, which is kind of their whole point, is how do you feel now with two people that you, at least on some level, care about or empathize with? Like, how does that work internally? And it's hard, definitely. And
yeah, like the goal that I think they set out to do of like make you care about these two characters enough to the point where you don't want to see them fight by the end, right? Like it is such an interesting and unique approach to storytelling, and I like it conceptually. I just don't like how they executed on it, and I feel like I would have liked it more. And you know, I could say that a lot of things. Ultimately, I don't know if there's anything they could have done to made me like really connect with it. But I hear that Metal Gear Solid 2 comparison a lot, and I think they should have just committed to. I think they should have just, when you switch to Abby, you never switch back.
Switch the whole time.
Not the whole time, but like I think when you switch to Abby the first time, because it's weird that you play her for all of 30 seconds and then you never play her for her. I wish that when you switched to her in the beginning, you played all the way through the switch where you went to Abby, and then you switch back to Abby or to Ellie. And I think it would have been a totally more interesting video game. But
I feel like I do feel like that would have been
it would have been way more ambitious.
I feel like that was definitely an idea on the table at some point, right?
It seems like they considered
it can't be something they didn't consider.
But I still would have had the problems where it's like all of the characters around Abby are terrible and I don't care about any of them. But like also the kind of redemption arc that she goes on of like, I'm gonna help these kids because I feel bad about killing Joel. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like they spend all of that game telling you about like all of her story, showing you Abby's relationship with her father, showing you why this mattered, showing you why she would be so full of hatred. And then, you know, I think that is the point, but like you missed it for me. I think you didn't give me enough on the other side of like, this character likes kids, or like this character can talk to kids, like, you know, just everything, the whole relationship with those two kids is like so
and it's
unearned.
I think obviously it was intentional to have Abby mirror Joel in a lot of ways. And it's interesting because with Joel, you see like his tragic beginning at saying pandemic feels a little too on the nose now, but the outbreak probably is better. And then it's the 20-year jump, and you kind of just fill in the blanks. And it's filled in narratively with other people talking, and actually through the relationship with Ellie, you know, when they get into Pittsburgh, and he knew it was an ambush when they get into Pittsburgh and stuff. And she's like, well, how'd you know that? It's like, well, I've been on both sides. It's like, oh, you were a bad dude.
Yeah. But I think also even before then, they're setting up who Joel is just with every conversation he has with Tess, every conversation he has with the guy Robert that they kill, every conversation he has with Marlene. Like it makes sense. Like they very subtly fill in the character gap of like, this is the kind of person this guy is, not a good one. And I love that they remain to that to the end of the game. When we're in the hospital in Salt Lake City and he grabs a gun and shoots the guy, I'm not surprised at all, right? And
no, and that's an example of, I think, player alignment with the character motive. At least I personally was like, I need to get upstairs, and you are in my way.
and that is the complete opposite of the feeling that I had when Abby was like, you're my people. I'm like, why? Like, all of the subtle character things that I've been seeing just make me feel like you're an asshole and not that you care about anyone. And maybe that's the point. That's the character that they're making. But, like, I just don't think they did enough there. But, like, on top of all of this, like, all of the more hard to answer questions from The Last of Us Part 1 that should have been answered, like, well, why didn't Marlene just ask Ellie if she wanted to do this? Why didn't anyone talk about the fact that the Fireflies were treating Joel like garbage and they were acting like a bunch of convict murdering bullies? Like, why do I now have to accept this Deus Ex Machina of a hospital leader guy that's like, well, we're making the sacrifice for the good of it, and he was a good guy, I guess. You know, like, all these questions...
He saved a zebra.
He saved a zebra. He must be a good guy. Like, all of these, I think, really complicated questions never get answered, and so you get this illusion of nuance without any of, like, without even addressing the more interesting parts of it, I think. So, and that's where it kind of, like, everything about The Last of Us, for me, is more interesting if it's not setting up anything, if it's just a story. And so that The Last of Us Part 2 just being consequences, which are interesting, but, like, you know, I've seen this story before. I've watched The Walking Dead. I've been here, and so I don't need this again. And, you know, I could go on and on about, like, it just didn't work, you know, at the end of the day. Just it didn't all come together for me.
And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a bummer. You know, I'm bummed out as much as anyone else.
Bummer. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Especially
like I'm probably in the way that you, like, have that appreciation for Naughty Dog, like, this has undone a lot of that.
Yeah.
In
it's
that
probably really hard, especially hearing they're remaking the first game. You know, and they have a part 3 kind of drafted out.
Yeah.
That probably really bums you out that they're really leaning even harder into this. The technical, like, businessy brain side of me is like, well, they're remaking the first game because of all the studio stuff that was happening outside of their division. Like, this kind of got thrusted upon them. And it just, like, from a business perspective, makes sense to have them make it, especially coming off of 2. Like, if they're going to just bring the first game mechanically up to date with the second game, I think on a gameplay level, that makes total sense. And having them do it also makes sense from a business perspective. And the part 3 thing, sure, they could do it. Absolutely they could. They had part 2 concept and drafted and written up right after part 1. Like, this is par for the course for them. I do not think this will be their next game. I think the remaster thing will be, like, what holds them, gets their engine on PS5, which I think is why you haven't seen a part 2 update for PS5, like Ghost or God of War or Ratchet or anything. But Naughty Dog doesn't want to make The Last of Us games for the rest of their lives. And they've always been, I think they've been rarely fortunate, I think, in the industry to kind of control their own destiny as far as IP and what they make go. Mm-hmm. I don't think, at least from what I've seen and read and heard and things like that, Naughty Dog has never made a game they haven't wanted to make. Like, Lost Legacy wasn't like you need to make a Lost Legacy started out as single-player DLC for Uncharted 4, and then their own ambitions turned it into a full-fledged, you know, game. So I feel like, you know, there's got to be something else. I mean, they have, Evan Wells just in an interview, they have multiple projects in pre-production right now.
And if anyone could, like, come out the gate with a new IP on PS5 and have it be look and sell well, like, you know, obviously it's them. And I think, like, you know, they did that on PS3 with The Last of Us, and they obviously had the opportunity to kind of build themselves up with Uncharted before then, and that kind of taking off in a way that they didn't necessarily expect. But I
think they expected that for 2, because I
hope so.
They were determined.
But, like, when I played Uncharted 1, I didn't necessarily think that was going to be where it is now. You know?
Oh yeah. What they just say? That's, I think 37 million people have downloaded or played Uncharted 4. Like, are you kidding me? That's insanity.
Crazy. And like, game. Especially, like, in the PS3 time, like, you know. As someone talking about video games way back then, like, it was just a different time for Sony back then. You know, they're now on top of the world.
Naughty Dog has been, and I think continues to be their golden goose, and now they just, like, have made a bunch of other golden geese.
Yeah,
Guerrilla completely pivoting with Horizon, Santa Monica kind of stumbling, you know, from Ascension through God of War 2018. Like, they had that project that was on some level scrapped, that sci-fi thing, whatever that was going to be, and who knows if that's back on the table now.
I do want to say, because I'd be remiss if I didn't, like, everything I say about The Last of Us 2, also, it didn't happen in a vacuum. like I played God of War 2018. I was very disappointed by it because of how Sony prestige video game it feels. I did that in air quotes. And like, especially like hearing them kind of say like, this is the thing that we're doing now, and like how samey a lot of their games are starting to feel. It's like, this is a problem and a bummer for me in a lot of ways. But also it's just like how Troy Baker, how Neil Druckmann, how all these people carried themselves around the criticism The Last of Us Part 2 was pretty disgusting. Like, to use as honest a word as I think I can. And that stuff bummed me out. But also, like, how so many people got so upset over The Last of Us 2. Like, I obviously have all these thoughts and feelings about it. I do not care. Like, I love that first game. I did, and I was very much anticipating this. And it was a bummer that it didn't work, but, like, just the vitriol that came out of it, even conversations I had with people I know of, like, someone who I won't name said, like, I feel like they did Joel dirty. It's like, I hate this. Like, I hate this level of conversation.
That level of conversation, which was around the game before it even came out.
Yeah, because, I mean, the spoilers and everything, too.
It's so disappointing, and disgusting really is a great word for it. I remember when the game leaked, and I didn't know what the leaks were until afterward. But
same.
Like, the internet has ruined nuanced conversation.
Literally same page, dude.
It is everything.
My very good friend Jared Green has said, like, do not talk to people like you're tweeting at them ever. And it's like there is nothing that has stuck with me more than that, of like the amount of times people like text me or things of like, this is a take, like I'm sending a tweet. I'm like, do not talk to me like this. Do not try and have a conversation like this. And that is I think where that discourse comes from.
It definitely. It is. There's no, Twitter. I wrote about this last year. I wrote kind of this blog post about, I think the title of it, I'll put it in the show notes. It was like 280 characters is not enough. And one of the things I wrote was like, Twitter used to be like, brevity was the soul of wit, was kind of the idea of Twitter with its 140 characters. And now it's like...
And like the Ouroboros, it has consumed itself into something terrible, I
didn't quite write that, but it was along that line of just... It is so... Kind of, again, Evan Wells, he just did this interview on like Game Maker's Notebook with Ted Price, Insomniac, back to Ratchet and Clank. And Ted asked Evan, like, what do you guys want to focus on going forward? Like, what kind of thing? And Evan, kind of the thing he kind of landed on was just the toxicity in our community. I think people forget quite often that other people make games.
Yes.
The things that we play. They are humans on the other side. And whether or not you agree with those people, Neil or Hallie Gross or Troy Baker, or even the smaller people that I say smaller meaning in just like they are not the face of the company, so to speak, or the project. They do tremendous work. I mean, the game looks, sounds, plays, I think all incredible. Like that bajillion man hours went into this. And people just tweet at them the most disgusting and horrible and horrific things. And the anonymity of the internet has just like made that okay, and it's not. And like, God bless anyone who works on a game in general,
or especially those community managers that just do not get paid enough to deal with
on
everything
the front lines.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
In the trenches. Yeah, I mean, like, it was just all bad, especially around that time with the leaks that you talked about, and like people getting that tweeted at them, people sending Instagram messages to Laura Bailey telling them how much they wanted to kill her for quote unquote killing Joel. Like,
she is not Abby. She is an actress doing a role, and I think her acting was incredible.
Yeah, great performance was great. But also, like, I'm a big fan of Critical Role, and they did a series of interviews called Between the Sheets. Great series of interviews led by Brian W. Foster. And in Laura Bailey's, like, she talked about how much she wanted to be in a Naughty Dog game, like, and how big a deal.
She got to be in 2 of them.
Yeah, but like how big a deal it was to her when she saw Ash and Troy in The Last of Us, and how their performances, for her transcended. And knowing that about her going into this game, knowing that this, more than anything was just a dream come true, that she got to be the essentially way more interestingly written protagonist of this game, and just how that worked out for her. But it's the other side of like Troy Baker tweeting at games journalists saying like you guys should be nicer because obviously it's been hard for them. It's like, no, like, or not like nicer, but like you guys shouldn't be as critical of the game because of this and that. It's like people need to conduct themselves better on Twitter.
Yes.
Or just get off.
People can be critical and have their own opinion on something, but that does not have to reflect on the actual quality of the human being that made the thing.
Yeah. I unfollowed a lot of people after that game came out, essentially. it's how it went down.
And that's honestly the healthier thing to do.
Yeah.
I am not afraid to mute. I am not afraid to unfollow, take a break. I can come back later. If I really care about what they say, I can come back and look it up later. It just... It's not the platform to have a discussion about anything, especially such a. And in the end, and I love, if it's not clear, I love Naughty Dog and their work and their games and all of this stuff, but it is not. None of their projects are worth threatening or attacking or being mean to anyone. Like, it's just a game. They made a game about a bandicoot, like. Come on, guys.
Yeah, at the end of the day, what are we even talking about?
Exactly.
And that's like, such a pervasive conversation about all video games right now. But, I think that was a particular stinking point for me.
I am curious where the TV show will go, how that conversation will be.
Yeah, and even like hearing about this remake, like how much
people are already like, make something new. And I think people are forgetting that. Because frankly, the article comes out, Jason Schreier, Bloomberg, he's the one that breaks the story. I forget what his headline was, but it wasn't Naughty Dog remaking The Last of Us. But you better believe every other news outlet, that's what they took away from it.
It was the stuff about the Days Gone developers and how they were going to make a Last of Us remake, and they were like, we don't want to become Naughty Dog 2.0, so please.
Yeah, it was like this supports team within Sony that wanted to be bigger, and unfortunately business kind of ended up shutting that down, and like those people left, unfortunately, are for what they wanted to do and stuff. And it's just now all they see is a headline in a Twitter article tweeted from an IGN or a Polygon or a Kotaku, and the immediate thought is, well, why are they doing this? Game came out only 8 years ago. Like, why are you and they just redid it, they remastered it on PS4. Like, what? And people forget that there's more to it than this. And making a game, a new original game, let's say their next project is a new IP. It took them 7 years to make part 2. How long? And that was with an established IP on a console they already knew how to make a game for because of Uncharted. Where you like, come on, let's cut everybody some slack.
And there's a lot of things that game developers do to pay the bills that a lot of people don't know. Like, like I remember one that sticks out to me is like, anytime you see like Brutal Legend is suddenly coming to Steam, it's like, yeah, because it's a revenue stream for that. Like, don't be upset about these things, but like
they're trying to win over Microsoft.
Yeah, they're trying to get there.
They're trying to get those big Microsoft dollars.
Like Remedy is another good example. They're making the single player campaign for this weird, China developed big popular video game frame. I don't know what it's called or whatever. I think it's got like one of those like 2-word military sounding names, but they're making the single player campaign for it as an outsourced company because it pays the bills. You guys, you got to pay the bills sometimes.
I remember that's what Rocket League, the Psyonix people were doing. They were doing a bunch of game support before Rocket League made it big. Like, and I think when you are a Naughty Dog or a Rockstar,
you don't have to do those kinds of things.
You don't. Really, I mean, Rockstar just prints money whenever they put out a new GTA Online thing.
Any update.
And when GTA 5 comes to PS5 and Xbox Series X later this year, how wild is that? The game is launched on 3 generations. One GTA.
Yeah, it came out in 2030. It came out the same year as The Last of Us.
It's The Last of Us. Yep.
So if you want to talk about a long 8 years, look at Grand Theft Auto. You know, it might be another 8 before we see GTA 6 because they just don't need to care. They can take all the time they want.
They've been spending all this time working on Max Payne 4. They wanted to get
that's the twist. God, what if that was like the reveal? They were making Sly Cooper 5 this whole time.
Agent coming back.
Coming back. You know,
I hold on to hope for Agent.
Yeah. Those are my feelings about The Last of Us Part 2. I think we covered it.
No, yeah. Thank you for sharing it. Because genuinely, I haven't really talked to anyone that has...
It's one of those things, too,
like left the game disappointed on the level, at least, that you have. I mean, people have qualms with the game or dislike certain parts or whatever, but...
it's like a great game. It's an 8.0 that I don't like, you know. That's what I would tell people. It's a very well-made video game that I'm not. I
know. I knew Doom 2016 is a great game, but it is far too long.
Yeah, see, like I get it. You know, it's just a different. Whatever it is, whatever is the thing. Like Nobishin has a great. Him and I talked about it in a great capacity of like, you know, he played Spider-Man, the Insomniac Spider-Man, and he had this terrible bug where all of it would load and stutter while you're swinging throughout the world. All the cutscenes would play with the character models all messed up, and it looked terrible. And it ruined the game for him. Like he just really didn't like it by the end, even though he played all of it and platinumed it. And he said to me of like, it was just enough of a issue for me to start having to question everything else, right? Like it didn't have to be related to his problems with the game, but it being a problem and hindering his experience, he's like, why does Spider-Man have to punch a big dude twice? Like, or more than that at all. He could lift cars and destroy buildings, you know, like he should be able to punch all of these people out with one hit. And like, so once the thing had happened, it just became a snowball effect of like all these other things that don't make sense. And it's like, that's just how it is, you know, like somebody could see a movie that everybody likes, but like an actor has a weird accent or a wig in it, and it just unravels everything for them, you know. It's just this is how people are. We're fickle things that, you know, we're not gonna like things, and we are gonna like some things at the end of the day. And I think as soon as you like just deal with that, like deal with the fact that maybe, like, I watched a movie with my friend and he had a tattoo that hurt the most because it was fresh and like it hurt most of the time, so he didn't really like it. And it's like, sometimes that's just life, you guys. Sometimes you go to the Dairy Queen and they're all out of vanilla ice cream and you never have Dairy Queen ever again in your life, right? Like,
yep.
People are dumb, petty, fickle things, and the sooner that you just acknowledge that about yourself and start working on getting over it, or just like dealing with it, I think you're just going to be so much happier. You know,
life tips with Alex O'Neill.
Yeah, there you go. Play Persona 5 Royale.
Spend 100 hours playing Persona 5 Royale, not 30 hours playing The Last of Us Part 2. Alex O'Neill, stamp of approval.
Yeah, that's exactly, like, that's my stance on life, and I understand so many people are going to just totally disagree with me, and it's fine, you guys. We don't even have to talk about it.
Guys, it's a video game. Get over it. There's more important things going on. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining me.
Yeah, I hope I wasn't too negative. Come down with my negativity hammer, smash it through the end of this podcast.
No, I thoroughly enjoyed hearing your thoughts on the game and just talking with you all night tonight. This is, I remember when I asked you originally, like a month ago, if you wanted to do this with me. You said, would 2 hours be enough? And I said, maybe. It was not. The classic Alex O'Neill effect of... just you do long podcasts, and I know that every time, but sometimes I hope, I'm like, I can do it in 2 hours this time, and I love talking to you. This is not a negative thing. I'm trying to compliment you. I'm doing a very poor
job. It's after midnight,
though.
I get it. You know, you get a little sassy after midnight. How good.
Go ahead and plug away, my friend.
If you want to follow me on Twitter, I don't tweet that much anymore, but I'm Alfighter27, as no one should. I saw someone say also this week, another great words of wisdom. Don't tweet through it. Don't work it out on Twitter. Don't you're having a bad one, don't be like, I'm going to make a thread about this. Just
can't tell you how many tweets I've started and then said, nope.
Me too, dude. like, I'm gonna start tweeting through it. No, you're not. Close the app and go home. Just tweet something about how you had ice cream today instead, and then never think about Twitter again. But I interact with people a lot through there. A lot of my tweets are just like back and forth. So, Alfighter27 there. I do podcasts, Rational Passions podcasts. It's been going for a long time. It is bi-weekly now. We only do it every other week, so you can catch that. It's been
going on for a few years.
Just a couple. You can catch that on the internet. IrrationalPassions.com is the place to go. There's a bunch of other people that do way more stuff there that are way more talented than I, but I like to do it with them. So go listen to Nintendo Land that I do with Mike Burgess. Go listen to RPG University. I do a syllabus every month with Scott White, and he does Thursday episodes every other Thursday on that. And there's a bunch of great writing stuff on there too. So check it out.
Yeah, check out Irrational Passions. There will be links to his Alex's Kind of Funny debut in here as well, so definitely you can go listen to that. If you would like.
I'll tell you if you want to know the funniest behind the scenes thing is I am in their server on Discord now, so I know when they're recording all their shows, and I get that like the little window that shows like their little cameras and stuff. And I am too terrified to ever go in there because I'm sure I will appear on something by accident, and B, too terrified to leave because I don't know what message that sends. And I typically leave every Discord server after I join it just because I only am in like one or two. So I'm just going to be trapped there forever.
A man after my own heart.
It is a text message situation all over again, you guys.
You can't escape it. You can't. If anyone listening would like to maybe know more about Irrational Passions or anything, go check a few episodes down in the podcast feed, because I re-uploaded our interview on Behind the Pixel as back, so I've been re-uploading that back catalog slowly here over.
I should go back and listen to this and see how egomaniacal I am.
It's both of us. Oh my gosh. It's back when we had dreams and ambitions of being video game journalists, like, big time, real jobs.
Before the world ended.
Before the world ended. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at MaxRoberts143. I am more active than Alex, but I definitely am not like Negative Nancy out here trying to tell people why they're wrong. Sometimes I like to fire up hot takes with Cam, who was in episode 2, but beyond that, I'm pretty mellow on there. You can find my writing at maxfrequency.net, and if you want to know more about The Last of Us Part 2 and writing and Naughty Dog, you can check out Chasing the Stick over at maxfrequency.net, or just go to chasingthestick.com. You can read the history of Naughty Dog during the PS4 era. And until next time, adios.